Welcome everyone to the ATLOpen series here for qualifier number 2. We are excited to get back in some Rocket League 2 versus 2 action. Welcome in again, everyone. Powered by Skillshot, of course, in partnership with CMG. My name, of course, Troy Pipcast Welling, and next to me today is going to be the wonderful Trevor Confused Caribou McNeil, and we're back in action for some qualifiers. I mean, I wasn't here last week, so I'm excited to go into this week, and I know specifically there's a lot of teams that we've seen a lot of that have not been in, or that aren't going to be in this qualifier, which is a huge change because we've seen these teams month after month, basically, at this point.
Names and familiar faces just not making their return here in the second qualifier really opens it up, especially in a month where in this community open, we're bringing it into, again, top 8 qualifiers, but then having an invitation for 8 teams that are already going to be there waiting. So these 8 teams that qualify out of our qualifying events are already knowing that they're going to have 8 really solid teams to face off at the end of the month, and having some new faces come into the mix is really good for the competitive state, really good for the event that we have every single month, because frankly, as good as Top Cougars has been for the last 6 weeks and winning every single event, it's nice to have a nice breath of fresh air.
It is nice, and we did have, of course, the people that were going to contest him this week, but it looks like Ember Gesa decided not to play this one. But let's go and take a look at the schedule of everything, how it's going to pan out for the rest of the month here for the Rocket League 2 versus 2s. Of course, we had our first qualifier last week. Second one is going to be today, and then the third and last qualifier to get you into the finals will be next Thursday at 6 p.m. Eastern Time, 3 p.m. Pacific Time. So make sure if you still have not played any qualifiers, you can play up into next week. And then, of course, that leads us into the finals on August 26th, where they have a chance to compete for a good chunk of money. And it's, the 8 best teams we've seen throughout the month. So it'll be a lot of fun. The finals are always amazing to watch, that level of competition.
Yeah, and watching these teams that continuously come back, you start to get a feel for the level of competitiveness that you have to reach, right? Because, you see teams like Top Cougars, like Amberguesa, like Galletti back in the 2v2s. I mean, now we're back in the 2v2s, but like you see these teams consistently performing so well that they hit the grand finals of every single qualifier. And then when it gets to top 8, it's like, okay, well, now you're going to look at these 2 teams. Like, that's the 2 teams that are probably going to make it. And you just know that's the bar that's being set by the rest of the field. Everybody else has to be able to meet that, because frankly, that's just the bare minimum if you want to walk away with some prize money. And Top Cougars have done it consistently and frequently. And now, as you mentioned, the way that it's going, someone else is going to be walking away with that cash money here today.
Yeah, and it's going to be interesting because there's one team in particular we'll talk about later, but this is what they're playing for today, at least $125 up top for first place, $50 for second, and of course, the top 2 spots will also get you through into the qualifiers. The top 3 spots will get you into the qualifiers. Wait, what's the math? I'm terrible at math. Don't mind me. You're going to qualify if you get first or second, at least. I know that for a fact. So that obviously you get prizing on top of that, and like we've said, you can keep playing qualifiers even if you've already qualified the very first week. Which is why last month Top Cougars' run through the qualifiers into the finals was ridiculous, to say the least. They won every single qualifier and the finals in the entire month last month, and it was an incredible run. Sad to see they're not here today, unfortunately, but they did play last week, but lost last week to a team that is also not here, which I was excited to watch play, was Jalading and his teammate Luis. Yeah. But like we've already said, there's a lot of teams that the top teams are not going to be here today. So that means those spots are vacant, which is huge. I mean, that's really important for the rest of the people playing today, that those 2 spots kind of reopen back up and allow some new teams, new faces to get back in those qualifying spots.
Yeah. It'll be very interesting to watch the table now, because you have the team that was Smokes and Toxic that ran the table for 4 weeks straight, where they won everything. They won all 3 qualifiers and the grand finals of July's event. And frankly, they did something unprecedented that we probably won't ever see again. And we already know it's not going to happen this month, because Amberguesa did not register for today's event. So it's not going to happen. We're not going to have back-to-back qualifier champions again this month. So with that being taken note of, all of a sudden you have this completely wide open, I guess, perspective that like anybody could take this. There's like 4 or 5 teams that we're keeping an eye on. We're taking notes of, because there are some good names that we are familiar with, some names that were on that championship squad from last month. Kiernan's got a new +1, Toxic's got a new +1, Smokes probably just busy today, couldn't play. Amber Guesa not here, but then also there is one name that we have not seen in like 2, maybe
Yeah.
3 months that I am very curious to watch, and I don't wanna spoil anything because we'll get there eventually, but I'm very excited to see how this turntables.
Yeah, we'll get there when we get there. Of course, that team is going to be a lot of fun to watch, and once you see their names, you'll understand why. But we actually have a top 10 plays from last week that we're going to go ahead and get right into, kind of show you what, the skill level that we saw last week going in at that 10th spot. And there's just so many good plays, of course. Coming in at the number 10 spot is going to be the Jalading, the grand finals matchup with Jalading Luis against Smokes and his teammate, in which Smokes gets one into the top right corner from a very weird angle. Really impressive.
Number 9, we have Wavy again from midfield with this aerial control, trying to take it to the house, but you'll see Toxic just slams the door, and eventually they would go on to win this series as Smokes and Toxic would make their way all the way to the grand finals.
And coming in at number 8, we have a beautiful save coming in from Luis here. Also in the grand finals, this is where all those highlight plays are going to come from. Smokes with a great flick, but Luis with a goal line save makes it look easy as that for number 8.
Number 7, we see Toxic make a return this time, keeping the ball just out of the reach of the defense, carrying it all the way in for their go-ahead goal in Game 2 of the finals. Unfortunately, they would fall later in the 3-2 score.
Coming in at a spicy number 6, Smokes once again and his teammate back on it. Toxic with a double tap off the backboard. And it's a crucial moment, 2 minute left, tied game. This is really important for them to move on. Toxic and Smokes connecting for number 6.
Take it back to the championship series of number 5. This time it's Luis pitching this beautiful center to Jalading for the equalizer in Game 2. It would go on to win this one. That was the first step in their way to the championship.
And number 4, this is going to be, once again, not Smokes or Luis finally, but a great flick from Skame to get this one. And then Jerome comes in with a great demo on that player that was contesting, and a wide open net open for him as Skame gets this really nice flick initially to start the play. Jerome gets that demo so he can't, really get anything else. And then a wide open goal, like I said, for Jerome. Slots that in, gets that top 4 play in.
At number 3, we take note of Emil, who we see pitch a tent in the back of the net, watching the play develop as it would come out to make this crucial save in the closing seconds, forcing a Game 3 in the quarterfinals. 9 seconds to go, making that save a huge clutch performance.
Yeah, very important save right there. Going into another very important save, Wavy with an absolute crucial save to start this game. You don't want to get demoralized off the bat, and he saves it right out of the corner, and a second save right away from Smokes and his teammate.
And our top play for qualifier number 1, of course, wraps it in our championship match where Jalading's shot gets saved by Smokes, and Toxic calls the shot and goes yard end to end, coast to coast with the first goal of Game 3. Of course, they would go on to lose the series. Game 3 would be the last game they did win, but made this one look pretty easy.
8-ball corner pocket right there, calling that one from deep. I mean, it's always nice. We talk about that constantly. The counterattack goals are huge, and that's exactly what happened. A great save leads into a goal-scoring opportunity, and in 2v2s especially, those are where you're going to find your easiest goals, and that's what they did. So really impressive top 10 plays. Of course, if you want to make that list for next week, you got to play well today, and we'll see you in the next week's reel and see how you play. But let's go ahead and go over to the keys to victory today to see how people are going to come on top, especially considering there's not those top teams today. Keys to victory, of course, is going to be play consistent, play hard. You can't drop any games. You have to be consistent from the start, and also just make sure that you and your teammate are communicating well. Even if you have, if you're outskilled a little bit, if your communication is good, you can set up plays. You'll be strong enough to win.
Yeah, and looking at it, the way the bracket is shaken out, 11 minutes ago, we made the bracket. It's completely randomized, so you don't know who you're playing against in the first round. Right. There's one play-in game into round 2, so we're starting out already pretty much in round 2 for today's event, and starting with the consistency and the confidence, being able to build up the momentum very early on in this tournament is so important, because you don't want a lot of downtime. You don't want to be sitting around waiting and watching and just cooling off in between series, because we've seen really great teams fall victim to a Cinderella story just because of the fact that they weren't keeping warm.
Yeah, exactly. That's super important. And we always talk about how that first round, first game is kind of that part, that warm up, you can have that ease, but you can't really. I mean, it's a single elimination. You go out if you lose that series. So you do have to keep that consistency throughout the entire series. And obviously, it doesn't get any easier the farther you go into the tournament. So you have to play harder and play smarter the later you go in. And I think that's one of the main keys to victory personally, is that you have to just play smarter. Whether, just simple counterattack plays, whether it's playing defensively against a fantastic team like Top Cougars. We've seen them get shut down and get 0 goals before because of the way that the other team played against them. And so you have to kind of figure out how to figure out the teams that you're facing. And that's, like you said, the best thing about having those randomized seeding, randomized games, is that you don't have that time to know right away. So you have to do it. You have to be adaptable mid-game. You have to know when to chase, when to try and figure things out. And you only have a best of 3 to do so.
Yeah, and that's another huge point, is being in a best of 3. Game 1, you really don't get the time to get a feel for your opponent. Like, you have to come out, like you said, come out the gate swinging. I mean, you have to play hard and play confident in game 1 at the drop of the first kickoff, because there's just no time to mess around. Any time wasted, unfortunately, is a position where you have to just play from behind, play catch up. And that's never a situation you want to be in a best of 3. You can't give up game 1, because backs against the wall out the gate, that's just the worst possible start to the tournament, because then you start getting in the mental tilt.
Yeah, and obviously that's one of the main things of going on a long tournament, is you got to keep that mental fortitude up for the rest of the tournament. But of course, we have our first matchup underway, or starting to be underway. Eternal Empire, which I saw some hype for in the chat. Also, guys, let us know who you want to win this tournament, who you think is going to take it out on top in the chat. Let us know who you're rooting for. Eternal Empire Red, though, I've already seen some support for versus Hard Donkey, is going to be our first round 2 matchup. And like you said, there's one round 1 matchup that I'm sure is going to end rather quickly. If you knew the names, it's Mighty P versus International Beast Lords, and we'll touch on them later. But that's a rough round 1 matchup for one of those teams going into the rest of the tournament. But of course, round 2 is going to be starting here shortly with Eternal Empire Red and Hard Donkey, and 2 teams I have not seen yet. So I'm excited to always, like I said, see new faces every week, and especially every month. We had different games in like February, March into April, I think. And then everyone's just been killing it on Rocket League. So we've just been constantly doing Rocket League since then. And people have been showing up, and it's been really fun to watch.
Yeah, and I love just the returning crowd that keeps coming back, not only to play, but to spectate the event. But then also the sense that you look at it and we're getting so many new teams. Like, there's maybe half a dozen teams here that are returning, maybe 10, 15 players total that we've seen that have filtered through over the last few months. But out of a pool of 35 teams here with 70 players, that's a really low percentile of players that keep coming back. So the fact that we have these new faces, new exposure to come through, just that much more of an outreach in any given week. Any one of these teams, any duo could really walk away with this thing and be a surprise to all of us, because it's happened before where all of a sudden, we're watching a team that is like Top Cougars caliber, where it's just Smokes and Toxic just running the table. And then there's this other team. It's like Chicken Strips Beluga Whale backwards. And it's like, I don't know who this is, but for some reason they're top 4 and they're giving Top Cougars a run for their money. And you don't know who they are. You don't know where they came from, but I'll be damned, here they are. And they're doing good.
Yeah, we had a team, Alphabet Soup, I remember specifically, that just had a random name and everything, and it was wild. But looks like we're getting ready to go into game, happily enough. Get this started ASAP for you guys, and it looks like we are already into the action. Of course, Knucklehead and Darklight Unique, or his teammate here, Scary Sad Skeleton, are going to be Eternal Empire Red, and they're starting it off the scoring with an early goal.
The Scary Sad Skeleton, not the spooky scary skeleton, so don't want to get them confused. It's not quite Halloween season yet, but just get a nice little touch off the nose over the top. Defenders not at home, and get that first goal. 16 seconds in, you weren't kidding. We are starting real quick in this game.
We are indeed, and they're already going to be putting on the action once again. You can see the aerials already coming out. Knucklehead missing off the wall there. I don't blame him. I struggle with off the walls too, but this is already looking like one of those games, if I'm going to be honest. Swing and a miss from a couple of players on the orange side, and Eternal Empire get another free goal. This is going to be a rough one from what I'm looking at for Hard Donkey's side. The hardest thing is to hit the ball in this game, and that's the main concern that we've seen so far. And going up against at least champ level players on the other side. They're going to outspeed you, out arrow you, and it's going to be a tough ride for Hard Donkey to try and find a win here in this best of 3 early on. Already down 2-0, got a bit of a ways to come back in this one. Nice redirect, goes just a bit wide though. And like you said, spooky scary skeleton goes to scary sad skeleton, much different, much sadder in that being said, but they are still up, so they're not going to be as sad when they're winning the game.
Yeah, and I like the confidence here of Knucklehead, just basically forehead into the wall. Just, there's 2 defenders in front of you, but just roll the dice. Try your luck, see what happens, and see if you can be able to get past both of them. I mean, Skeleton's trying to do the same thing, play it off the wall, and get the double touch to send it in. Assist coming from Knucklehead off the deflection, but I love the confidence exuding from them right now, because this is exactly the ingredients that you're putting in right now to the crockpot. And watch 2-3 hours later, when your team's still running down the tournament, that this is where it all started. This is how you get yourself into the semis and quarterfinals.
Yeah, and we'll see if Hard Donkey can find a way back into this game, get their mojo back up, try and get themselves into the quarterfinals and above. But they're down 3-0 right now, and with only a minute and a half time gone, they have plenty of time to score. You see some some misses going back and forth between both sides. Knucklehead, sorry, is going to bring this one off the wall, misses the initial touch off the wall, and we see a collision of orange teammates over there trying to get this clearance out of their side of the field. Devontae is going to try and bring this one upfield. Still has the ball on top of his car with a decent dribble, but unfortunately loses possession around that midfield side. And you can see the other player, the other teammate is just rock solid in goal. He has not moved in the last 45 seconds and still gets scored on, unfortunately enough, for Hard Donkey. The goalie strategy in 2v2s, not the greatest considering there's only 2 of you. You don't have the extra attacking presence, and doesn't work out for them here as they're down 4-0 in just under 2 minutes.
A decent attempt on the challenge to come off of the line and potentially get the ball away from Knucklehead there, but yeah, just a little bit of indecisiveness and hesitation, as you see right there, just coming off the line, kick it in reverse. That is the difference maker, and the problem that we see from the Hard Donkey side right now is because of the fact that just not quite fully convinced of your own plays and of your own movements. And that's what is unfortunately the detriment here to the Hard Donkey squad, why they find themselves at this deficit this early on.
Yeah, it's a rough standing, and like I said already from the beginning of the game, you could already tell this was going to be a rough one for Hard Donkey, and that's just purely based on speed, aerials, everything that is core to Rocket League is where they struggle at so far. And this one, I already could have told you that probably would have been an unfortunate miss, but Scary Sad Skeleton's going to miss it just on the other side. So whether he's being nice or whether, it was planned or not, they still are up 5-0 nonetheless. And Hard Donkey has to try and find a way to at least recover some of their mental going into the second game here, being down 5-0. Scary Sad Skeleton's going to try and get this one off the ceiling. Does not connect with that second shot. And Knucklehead's just going to be a bully and take out Devontae in the backside of their offensive side of the field. But Camrose here is going to try and see what he can do on the other side. But now an open net potentially. But Scary Sad Skeleton's going to dive bomb into the floor. Probably got a concussion with how much he just straight dove his head into the ground there. Have you ever thought, in Rocket League, is it like the movie Cars? Do your cars have emotions and feelings? Because they do a lot more than regular cars do, and it can only be assumed that, they have feelings.
We are 3 minutes and 20 seconds into game 1 first series, and you are already going here? My guy.
Listen, there's not a lot going on. Scary Sad Skeleton with a great shot on the redirect. Oh, they just left. Oh, it's one of those things you hate to see. Twitch chat. My voice cracks in that.
F.
Not great. That's gonna be the end of the game already. I'm assuming the end of the series in that time being.
Yeah.
We've seen this a couple times before. It's an all skill level, all free entries, so it is gonna happen. I mean, there's gonna be teams that are Supersonic Legends. There's gonna be teams that are bronze and new to Rocket League. Like, it's just how it pans out sometimes. I mean, we have professional players in this tournament, so if they face one of these teams, you could even just imagine what that pace would be like. But let's go and take a look at the quick replays of the 6 goals that we saw on the one side from not Hard Donkey, Eternal Empire, as they got 6 in a row. And it was just like I said, once you can see, you can tell the difference quite immediately on the pace of play and the level of skill. Just, I mean, if that's just due to speed, if that's due to aerial, just the way that positioning, everything. There's a lot you can tell from teams early on to see how they're going to combat difficult situations. And somewhere like this, where that should be an easy clearance, quote unquote. I mean, still a hard clearance, even if you're good at the game sometimes. But some of these are, I mean, that shot was fantastic. I will give that to them completely. That 6th goal was a great redirect from Scary Sad Skeleton to get them that 6-0 lead and potentially the rage quit, as we'll see if that is what has developed. I'm assuming so, unless they just were like, no, we're done with game 1. We're going to go right into game 2. But usually the case is that they're just heading out in that one. So we'll see what happens. But as far as the first round matchup goes, which I really want to see, I'm excited to see how that pans out. Mighty P versus International Beast Lords. That is going to be an exciting one. Hopefully we get to see International Beast Lords. That is the team we're going to be constantly talking about later today. I mean, they are, without a doubt, we'll talk about the favorites for now, because there's no Top Cougars, there's no Vela and Bungie, there's no Luis. There's so many teams that are not in this tournament that this team was already fantastic, right? But to also take out most of their competition to get to that top 4 area, it's going to be a wreck as far as who can contest them for that one spot, I think.
Yeah, and like looking at it, there are 3 teams we're going to keep an eye on because the fact that Top Cougars are not here, because the fact Amberguesa, as a defending Qualifier 1 champions, not here as well. There's 3 teams. As we mentioned, Toxic has got a new teammate that is going under the name of Cougar Lovers here in this one, with Revizy being the +1 in that. Gambling Problems, if you remember Kiernan from last month's 3v3s, Kiernan was the 3rd member of the Top Cougars championship squad, has come back with Stealth. And the other one is that International Beast Lord squad that we are talking about. And the reason why we are talking about them is because a couple of months ago, we saw a duo with Mektos and Leaks participating in our event. This time around, Mektos has returned with a fresh face and freshness. Would you like to explain why we're going to be keeping such a close eye on these 2?
Yeah, if you don't know those names by heart, if you're a Rocket League fan, Mektos and Freshness are 2 of the 3 players on Ghost Gaming's professional Rocket League team. So, yeah, already, I mean, we've seen Mektos in previous tournaments, but he's played with, like, friends, or he's played with other, like, decent players that have been, close to his skill level, but no one has been at Mektos' level yet, as far as his teammates go. And then this is the first time we're seeing him with his actual Rocket League teammate in the professional setting with Freshness. So that is the team we are, I would say, worried about for the rest of the competition, because they should just single-handedly start taking out most of the competition, I would say. I mean, they should realistically on paper be the best team in the tournament. Like, there's no doubt about that. They should be the best team in the tournament. They are by far the highest skill level, I would assume. I mean, they're professional, that you can't really go higher than professional. So yeah, they are the highest skill level without a doubt, but there's a lot of very good teams going into this one, and Disingenuous already going into the round 3. A couple teams already moving on to the round 3. So some good updates being risen as of now. But yeah, like we said, International Beast Lords are the absolute one spot. And I'm interested. We obviously don't know who's going to be the kind of second seed up to them. I would assume maybe Toxic and his teammate Revizy have a good chance at that. They're already in round 3 as well. They are the Cougar Lovers, like you said. And then we have some hype in chat for Disingenuous as well, who's their first tournament with us so far. So excited to see their skill level. The only issue that I can see so far is they are on the same bracket side as the International Beast Lords. So not exactly the best round matchup you would have wanted for your immediate round 3.
Yeah, we saw the International Beast Lords just advance there into round 2. So they just finished their series, and I would imagine probably a 2-0 fashion against Mighty P, where they'll now face off against King Esports. But Disingenuous is there watching the result of King Esports and International Beast Lords, and I'm sure going to be now taking note, like, oh, okay, now we know what we're probably going to be up against here. And even if you're not against the International Beast Lords, you're against a team that just beat them. So, like, it doesn't get any better, like, regardless of how you look at it. Like, unless the International Beast Lords are just playing on their floor and King Esports are playing at their ceiling. Like, it's going to be a very difficult matchup for Disingenuous. But yeah, having a handful of teams advance to round 3, as we said, basically kicking this thing off in round 2. So we are very close to the quarterfinals already. So in these opening matchups, it'd be very important for these teams to make sure that they build up a little bit of confidence, a little bit of momentum, kind of get in the groove, make sure the comms are clear, comms are good, and let's get to a point where we can see some grade A Rocket League.
Yeah, and I think we will. And funny enough, I like that you mentioned they're playing on their floor and their ceiling because, like, that's literally and metaphorically the only way I could see them having a chance against the international beast lords. But we're going to go to a quick break as we get round 2 set up going into round 3. Do not go anywhere. We'll be right back with some more Rocket League action. Welcome back, everyone, to the IATL Open qualifier number 2, of course, for the month of August. My name Troy Pibcast Dwelling. Next to me, Trevor Confused Caribou McNeil. I'm getting the point down. I'm super excited.
Going in the
We're
right
happy to
way.
be
I'm
back.
really
Of
proud of you.
course, I can't believe it. It's something that I've been practicing day after day, week after week. Just I'm like,
It took a
I'm on
year and a
screen
half.
that way, and I'm on screen that way, and I've just been doing that. Yeah, it took a long time. But our next match is going to be Xerox versus Vizine here in round number 3. We're already getting through our round number 3 matches. So, like we've said, this is a very, very fast pace, very nice. We're doing well. The only other match, once again, we're waiting for is because of they had that first round matchup, but I'm sure it'll be fast. Is King Esports and International Beast Lords there in round 2. Otherwise, we have
Yeah.
every other matchup in round 3 done, at least outlined for us already. So going quick, going into the top 8 soon. But as far as this matchup goes, Xerox versus Vizine, both are relatively new to the competition scene. I mean, 3-3 for Ghost on Xerox, 1-0 for Mizuki, and on the other side, 3-1. So just an unfortunate finish last time for Vizine, but they have at least a little bit of background history in the tournament so far.
Yeah, and I'm looking forward to see, kind of what they can do here in this one because of just how fast this is developing, right? Like how quick pace this tournament's going. Like, is that going to carry over and translate into gameplay? Are teams going to try to increase the momentum and pacing of the game where all of a sudden it gets out of control, gets a little crazy, gets away from them? And at that point, it's just disorganized chaos. And hopefully teams are going to be able to reel it in from that because by the time you started your intro, there were like 3 open slots in round 3.
Yeah.
By the time
And
you
then
finished
suddenly,
talking, we were down
boom.
to just that one. It's just King
Yeah.
Esports and International Beast Wars playing in. So this is going very quickly and going into top 8, coming out of this round. Hopefully teams are in the right mindset to move forward into this in this best of 3.
Yeah, it's going to be, like we've said, it's going to be a lot tougher moving on the rest of this tournament, going into the end of this. I mean, we've already talked about even going into now, into the round of 16, basically, it gets really difficult because a lot of these teams have already won probably 2 matches at least to get to this point, or at least one in that same being, but they have to have at least beat someone, right? So it's not just someone fresh off the bat that you can have a chance to beat. These are teams that have practiced already. They've already won their matchup and are moving in to the next round kind of confident and moving on with their pace of play. So, like you said, this is going to be a really important part of the tournament because obviously this is probably one of the harder rounds to get through, I would say, going from round 3 into the quarterfinals, because obviously quarterfinals is the top 8. Those are the 8 best teams in the tournament. So you have to beat one of the 8 best teams in the tournament or be one of the 8 best teams in the tournament to get there. So it is a very difficult round for these teams to get through. And it kind of tells you the most of who has that chance to go through. We're seeing a lot of familiar names we've already talked about. Cougar Lovers, we've already seen. Eternal Empire Red, we saw them get their win earlier on. And then right now, this matchup, Xerox versus Vizine, will tell us which one of these teams is going to be in the top 8 this time. And of course, one more qualifier next week. So if you did miss out on this week's qualifier, or you're one of these teams that unfortunately has to get knocked out no matter what, you have another chance next week to get to the finals. And even if you qualify this week, still can take the money this week, do what Top Cougars did, win every qualifier from here on out, and just keep taking money from everybody week after week into the finals. True. And like you said, they went on a miracle run. I don't think anyone else could do something like that.
Yeah, unprecedented run. And to the point that you brought up about, the path to get to the quarterfinals, right? Like going up, I feel like it is climbing a mountain, getting up here to round 3, like right before the quarterfinals, right? Whether it's round 3, round 4, depending on how many participants you have. I feel like you go uphill to that point, and depending on the RNG of how the bracket's drawn out, you might actually regress in between your like round 2, round 3 matchup to the round right before quarterfinals. It might actually be a quote unquote easier matchup, just depending on the route that you took to get there and your opposing team. But once you do get through that one and you do qualify to quarterfinals, then it is a exponential rise to the teams that you have to play against. The quarterfinals and the semifinals both are just going to be that much more immaculately difficult. And if you play against a team where you're actually regressing right before quarterfinals, I feel like that's detrimental to your team play because all of a sudden you get a little complacent, you take it easy, you don't really play like you should play, play like every series is a championship series. And if teams are in a situation where they're playing a team that they feel like they easily outclass and outskill, then they're just going to do whatever they want. And there's just no rules. And then you're going to find out real quick in your next matchup against a team where Mektos and freshness comes in. Maybe we should have not slacked off in our last one and played like we should, because now we're down 8-0 and we're 90 seconds into the game.
Right, and we've already talked about it, but the people on that side of the bracket have a lot to worry about as far as the, without a doubt, number 1 seed going into this tournament. So teams like Disingenuous, Cougar Lovers, Gambling Problems, any of those teams on the top half of the bracket have to worry about International Beast Lords. This is, of course, if they beat King Esports, but I am just going to assume because they are a professional team, 2 of them out of the 3 of Ghost Gaming should probably keep going through it into the grand finals, I would assume, today. But we've seen mistakes happen before. Underdogs win, so we'll see.
Can I just say, it's out of the randomization of seeding, it is really situationally comical that the International Beast Lords, who we think is the best team, got 32nd seed out of 34 teams. Like you almost could not get any lower, and yet here we are, the best team, and they get the one lone matchup in round 1.
Yep, they get the one matchup, and there's literally, I think there's 2 total, but the other one DQ'd or went through really fast, so it didn't even count. So they were the only game to play through in round 1. We're getting some lobby issues, it seems, so we'll get that underway. It looks like that goal went in, though, as far as I know. Looks like Elite Ghost was able to slot this one into the bottom right, as they just didn't have the defending presence over there on Vizine to be able to stop that. So first goal going to come through off the kickoff, essentially, for Xerox here. Seeing the very illustrious Space Fennec out of one of the players there on Vizine. But great challenges coming out here from Mizuki so far as he keeps on putting on pressure. That's one of the main things is really important in Rocket League, especially even if you have 0 boost. Really important to pressure, get shots on goal, and you'll score.
Good setup right there, and really good read. Just being able to play it patiently there just past the midfield line, and then get this shot on high velocity between the 2 defenders where both of them could not get a position. The one coming from high, already out of position, just has to hope gravity comes in fast enough, and the other one has to take a guessing game. Really well-aimed shot there.
Yeah, that brings them up to a 2-goal lead, 30 seconds in, so quite a bit of pace here still for Xerox. Vizine has to find something. Like we said, this is what is going to decipher one of the teams from being the top 8, one of them being the top 16. I mean, that's a huge difference overall in just perception on being, hey, we're one of the best teams here. We have a chance at qualifying versus, yeah, we just barely made it in the round of 16. Hopefully we can do better next week. So this is a very important matchup still nonetheless. Like we're talking about, round 3 could be a very difficult, or it could be easy. I mean, like you say, we've seen it before. Team gets a bye first round, wins the second round against an easier opponent, and suddenly they're not prepared for that round 3 matchup. Nice dribble off of Elite Ghost here and finds a challenge. Third goal going in for himself and his team. Great dribble off the touch here from Elite Ghost, and he just keeps it low, keeps it driven, and was able to get that second chance. Whether that was on purpose or not, it still went in, so who cares?
Exactly. That initial touch, a little strong, a little off, and, being able to use the boost and still get up and keep up with it and not let the defenders challenge in time. A small mistake, but still able to get the goal out of it. End of the day, it's a point on the board. As you said, who cares? It don't matter.
And now we see if Vizine can find a way to come back into this one. As of right now, they're struggling here as far as defense goes. Wide open net, easy shot for Elite Ghost, and the coordination, communication just not there, it seems, so far for Vizine, as that was almost an own goal. And then he left that one go, and then his other teammate couldn't get there in time. So far, Vizine not exactly having an easy time into this first matchup. Only a minute and a half in, and they are down 4-0. Like we've said, that could also be the case. You have these matchups where one team is just outpacing the other, even going into later rounds, round 3. We've seen it maybe in the quarterfinals as well, but it's much rarer, obviously. But it's still time for Vizine to try and catch up here, considering they have to do something. Of course, in only a best of 3, we've already talked about it, that game 1 is probably the most important game of the series, because game 2 is easy. Nice double save, by the way, from Jory right there to be able to get that one back and try and keep his team in this one. I mean, keep them in this one is a relative term considering they're down 4-0, but a double save gives them at least a little bit of hope.
Yeah, and just small defensive miscues in the initial goals. I mean, the first one, it is what it is. You take that at face value, but the development of the defensive stances has gotten better. They have improved on the defensive side, and that double save, I think, is kind of the icing on that cake to make that point. Like, they have really stepped up and started to get an understanding of the offense, from Xerox. But unfortunately, it took them 4 goals before they finally did so. And they find themselves now at this deficit past the halfway point where it is a lot to handle. And they have to be able to find something going the other way because they're just spending too much time here on this side of the field.
Yeah, they're struggling to get opposing positions on the other side. I mean, they haven't really had any shots on goal, I believe. I think Vizine has been struggling so far, and that touch just leaves it wide open once again, brings it up to a 5-0 standpoint, and it just gets harder at this point on. So we'll see if that is going to be a point to where they just think about next game and just go next, or if they could try and find 5 goals, potentially 6, I guess, in the next 2 minutes here, in which they've had no shots on goal. It's really difficult to see them being able to mount a comeback here, considering they just have been on defense the entire game. I mean, you have a good touch there from Butter, but no follow-up air dribble off the wall or second shot. So, I mean, yeah, first shot technically goes onto net there, but like we've said, that has been the only creation they've really had so far. So they are definitely struggling to try and get some shot creation, and that's something really important as well. We didn't talk about the keys of victory, but just shot creation in general. I mean, this is in general sports affairs, is like if you can get your shots on net, even if there's a goalkeeper, like the more you shoot, the more you have a chance of going in, right? So it's like you just keep shooting and hope one day when your shots go in, putting all that pressure that entire time, and that's kind of what a lot of teams in Rocket League like to do. Just keep putting the ball on net, eventually find a goal.
And eventually, that's exactly what happens. I mean, even if it is just a slow floater over the top, or you have Ghost coming in at full velocity from midfield just to put a nose on it, put it in the back of the net. I mean, a 6-0 lead here for Xerox is just building their offensive pressure from not only this game, but into the next game as well as the next series that they'll inevitably play if they continue to play like this. So being able to have this poor performance at this point, but Vizine on the other side, you know, as their defense has gotten stronger over the game's duration, unfortunately, they just started out way too late to be able to do anything about this. I mean, they're making decent saves now to shut down a majority of these saves, or a majority of these shots. But the problem with it is, as you said, there's just way too many shots on net here from the Xerox side. There's just no chance at all Vizine's been able to really get out. We've seen them spend maybe a grand total of 30 seconds on the other side of the field, and there's no consistent possession that they've been able to hold on to, create some passes, create some plays, because immediately after a single touch, it just goes right back the other way.
Yeah, and I gotta give props to Joro so far. He's been fantastic in that. He has 5 saves already this game. Obviously, like we've said, they've been on defense the entire time. The first shot on goal realistically comes from Mizuki on his own net, and saved easily by his teammate Elite Ghost. But you can see the shot difference. I mean, 9 shots over here, make that 10 and an extra goal for Elite Ghost here. Actually, I think Mizuki gets credit for that one, so another goal for him. But I think 9 and 8 shots respectively together, or 9 and 9, so 18 plus shots in this game so far from one team, and 1, I believe, on the other side. Kind of shows you the scoreline, how it should develop, and that's kind of how it is developing. 7-0 is going to be the finish here as the ball drops, hits the ground, and Xerox takes the first game. Now, if you're on the other side, if you are Vizine, we've seen this before. The easiest way to stop this is just to keep them low scoring. I mean, as simple as that sounds, it's very difficult still to do, but I mean, to beat teams like Top Cougars, we've seen before, the easiest way was to play a really strong defense, get maybe a counterattack or two, and then beat them like 1-0, 2-0 eventually at the end of the game. You just have to keep them low scoring, and you'll have a chance.
Yeah, and you think about it in a way of like the last 3 minutes or so, they held them to just 3 goals. So a goal a minute, it's not ideal because you'd like to have some scoring opportunities on the other side, but defensively, that's fine. We can take a look at some of the highlights here from what was just a shooting gallery from the side of Xerox. And of course, all of our highlights powered by Microsoft ATL. It started out real quick. I mean, they put up 2-3 goals in the first 60 seconds of this game. And at that point, it's just a defensive improvement from the other side. But the problem with all of that is as good as your defense gets, you have to be able to translate it into some semblance of offense. Like, no matter how exciting the Super Bowl is, when it's 3-3 at halftime, nobody cares about the Patriots and the Rams. Like who cares? Right. I want to see a touchdown scored. Finally, you get a touchdown. Unfortunately, Butterfly and Joro just could not put together a touchdown scoring drive, and it just kept being a defensive stance that they could not get out of.
Yeah, they were realistically in a rut the entire game. They could not get out of their side of the field, and that's where we have to see in game number 2 immediately. They have to find that switch up. They have to find the change into the second game to switch it to not be on defense the entire game, even if it means they're leaving their net open a lot of the time and they're playing really aggressively, playing for the midfield challenges already. I mean, we're seeing some better chances. I mean, off the bat on kickoff, but this is the kind of opportunities they need. They need to play aggressively, play those midfield challenges, try and just get them off the ball as soon as possible. Don't let them create. Mizuki almost doing so right there with a good chance off the corner. He's going to continue to have this one, though, and still with a decent amount of boost and the corner up, should be able to take that one. And that's also something really important in twos, especially taking those corner boosts when you're on attack realistically all the time. If you can just keep them boost starved, you are going to score within the next 20, 30 seconds because of how hard it is to defend without boost.
I've only seen one team in the duration of all of our community opens that's been able to get boost starved for 90 seconds straight and turn the whole situation around and go down and score a goal with like 30 boosts to their name. And that was Smokes and Toxic. Like, that's the only team. And they did it like last week, where it's like there's no reason that they should be able to drive out of their defensive zone with that much boost, but they've done it, and that's the only team. So being able to control the boost of your opponents is a huge advantage you're creating for yourself, and we're seeing Xerox do that. But this is, again, the defensive improvements from Visine, where they are not giving up as much to Xerox. They're still being able to play relatively well, but that pass over the top, Mizuki being able to get the nose on over the top, great pitch and catch here from Ghost, and being able to get that one on target as well. The first goal given, it's still a sign of positivity for Visine, but Xerox breaking that threshold is that little boost of confidence where there might be a cloud of doubt forming in their minds through the first minute and a half of this game.
Yeah, obviously it hasn't been like the first game, so they're already probably thinking, oh, these guys took it up a level. Now we have to really try and score our goals, in which that was still a really great created play coming out from Xerox. They still had some good coordination. The speed from Mizuki was able to beat both defending players on the Visine side, so worked out for them nonetheless, but it is obviously a much different pace than the first game is going. Great shot on net. Mizuki's going to fake that one out, and Elite Ghost is going to get that one basically close to the ceiling and down into the net. So that's one of those defensive rotations where this realistically should be an easy save. You just need to have those rotations in time, and I think it was just Joru was caught trying to get boost in the corner, and his team was at midfield, so they just didn't really expect that to be a shot on net. And so those are the kind of goals that if you have the chance, you're going to shoot on net and see what happens. And that's pretty much what Xerox has been doing so far. They have a chance, they shoot on net, and it works out.
That's a little chip shot over the top as well, keeping a shot on net. Now, all of a sudden, in the last 60 seconds, they've really kicked it up here and recognizing that Visine's defense has done better. They've won at least a few more of the 50-50s. They started to create some more arguments around possession, around midfield, and finally, Xerox recognizing that to take advantage now of their own situation and kick it up a notch themselves to put them up 3 goals. And in a really good standing from where they're at here in this game and also where they're at in the series, up a game in the series, now up 4 goals coming up on 2:40 to play. Xerox should be able to kick it into cruise control here and just make sure that they maintain at least the same semblance of momentum, that they should be okay to move on into the quarterfinals.
And a fun little update, I didn't realize how important this matchup was for round 3 especially, but Cougar Lovers versus Gambling Problems was actually a really great matchup. And I was just looking, I was like, wow, they lost. And I realized it was Kiernan and Stealth versus Toxic and his teammate. Like, that was a really good matchup that that went on there. So Toxic and Revezi go out in the 3rd round to a person he's played with before in Kiernan. So Elite Ghost still scoring. I've marked this game down as Xerox's, and they are advancing to the quarterfinals. But like we said, that is one of the first 2 matchups to go through the quarterfinals already. But I didn't realize how good of a matchup. I was like, oh, Cougar Lovers got that, right? It's Toxic and Revezi. They seem really strong. And then you look at Kiernan, look at his record just on CMG alone. You're like, 18-1. Yeah, that's an issue. Okay, understandable. And then I think we've seen Stealth before as well. I'm not 100% sure, but I mean, nonetheless, still a good duo, and they're making it work, and now move themselves to the quarterfinals against a very good team. I mean, that's probably one of their hardest matchups. And speaking of one of their hardest matchups, if International Beast wins, they do face their hardest matchup in the quarterfinals. So it has not been an easy ride for the Team Gambling problem so far.
And looking at it from Toxic's point of view, this is okay. It's an okay result because, like, sure, you want the money. As you said, there is no reason to not sign up for every qualifier because you can keep coming back to get the prize money at a first or second place every qualifier you play in. But Toxic's already qualified for the grand finals in a couple weeks' time. So it's like, it just kind of simplifies things because you don't have another teammate qualifying with someone else, and then you get all that cloudy and convoluted TO stuff that, you know, those people who are really smart, like we're not, get paid to do, and sort out all those issues with one player playing on two separate teams that have qualified. But in that place, it's okay because Toxic's like, I've already made finals, whatever. But you lose out on the money. But yeah, very intriguing development because as you just skim over, like, okay, you see the word cougar, and at this point, we've just kind of been conditioned to see the word cougar and think that's a win. Whoever playing cougar, that's a win. And then you look and you realize there's gambling problems on the other side. Now you're going to realize that it might be the International Beast Lords on the other side as well. Like, this is a very interesting way that the three teams that we mentioned to watch today are all feeding into the same matchup in the quarterfinals.
Yeah, it's a rough side of that bracket, that top half, for sure. Not anything given on that top side. It is it's a rough run through, absolutely, to get through that top half of the bracket. But that being said, it looks like Vazin's out on this one. So 8-0 was that deciding factor that they're like, you know, we lost 7-0 the first time, 8-0 the second time. Maybe it's time to just move on with our day in Rocket League another time. And understandable. They didn't really have an easy comeback in that one with a minute left. So that is going to be a win for them. And now we're already seeing some wins develop in round 3 so far. But let's go take a look at the replays of that wonderful series, wonderful game from the likes of I can't Xerox. There we go. Every time it zones me out, but powered by Microsoft ATL, of course, 0x, whatever you want to call them. It was just a goal scoring affair. I mean, 15 goals in 2 games, rather simply just not normal in Rocket League. So a nice start for them, but now they go to round 4 into the quarterfinals, in which they step it up. I mean, you have a game like this, we already talked about, it really offsets your momentum going farther in the tournament because you're like, oh, we're winning so easily, we don't really have to do anything. And then you face a really hard, really difficult matchup in your next game, and suddenly it's a lot different. So they do have to, after scoring a lot of goals, of course, they have to kind of zone back in and realize that quarterfinals is not going to be this simple.
Yeah, and there's also a way that, like, you look at a gameplay like this where this isn't even like super high level complicated plays where you're setting up a nice 1-2-1 or setting up a center and you have to worry about boost control and boost starvation of the other team and how to win your 50-50s and winning midfield possession. Like, it's just really basic reactive Rocket League. And that is a thing that teams will fall victim to, where you get used to playing reactive and all of a sudden you play against a team that is exclusively proactive, and all they do is press the issue, they create their opportunities, and they find a way to be able to beat you down regardless of what your experience is. And if you fall victim into that sort of I don't want to say momentum because that's not the right word for it, but that's
mindset.
What's the word for habit? Fall in the habit of getting into the same thing over and over, just strictly reactive. Eventually, you're going to have a shortfall, and a better team is going to beat you.
Yeah, it's true. And obviously going to the quarterfinals, which one of these two teams in our next matchup is going to try and do, you have to make sure that you can't have those habits pop up and going later on in the tournament. So we'll see if first place versus King Esports, the second King Esports team. I think we had the original King Esports team face International Beast Lords, and they unfortunately had a tough matchup. So another King Esports team against first place here. This team is going to be one of the last spots as well to get into the quarterfinals. So we're only waiting on this game and Disingenuous and International Beast Lords, which I'm sure is going to be a fun series to watch. But like we've already talked about, some quarterfinals rounds developing. GG Easy, Wild GG already sitting in the quarterfinals. Hybrid and Xerox going to be another quarterfinal matchup. Discombobulated Banana waiting on their matchup. Same with Gambling Problems, which we know Gambling Problems is, I mean, realistically, I'd probably put those as the top 2 teams so far from what we've seen, is the Gambling Problems and International Beast Lords. and they're going to have to face each other in the quarterfinals, which is unfortunate. So that's of course if Disingenuous doesn't lose, but it is two professional players on a duo team going into the tournament. So you kind of have to expect that they have the chemistry and the sheer Rocket League knowledge and expertise to win that one. But as far as this game goes, our predictions for how we think first place to King Esports are going to go off of, there's not much to go off of in general. I mean, they're 2-0 and then 1-0 on each one of these sides. So they don't have a lot as far as their tournament plays so far, but I'm interested to see if they have. I think it's going to matter on the first game because I can't really put a prediction up right now because I haven't seen either of these two teams play. So I think the first game is kind of where I'm going to get that first feel to see how fast each team plays, their coordination, all that kind of stuff.
I think in the first, so if you don't find out in the first 2 minutes of the game, you're going to find out by the end of game one for sure, because it either goes away that in the first 2 minutes, a team really amplifies their standing in a game and they really impose themselves on the opposing team. And if they don't do it the first 2 minutes, then it's going to be by the end of game one where you're going to realize, okay, this team did the ABCD, and this is why they're better, and this is why it's going to carry over into game two. And even with the 1-0 lead in a best of three, like this is just a thing that, as I talked about earlier, in a best of three series, you cannot give up a game where just like you want to get a feel for game one. You can't do that in this format. So you have to come out the gate swinging, and you got to come out with a dub.
And we'll see if they do come out of the gate swinging. We're getting into this match one right away as we see already a shot on goal, but a wonderful save from Slyrix here on the blue side, I believe, for first place. Yes, indeed. As they're going to start out with a quick save. Nino's back on the wall with no boost, though, so he's got to try and find the corner or a lucky boost spawn, in which he does. So not able to do anything off of it, though, even though he did get that boost spawn. This is already going to be one of those matchups I can tell, like you said, off the first minute or so, you can tell realistically how both teams are going to play. And so far, it's very fast-paced. We're seeing a lot of good movement, good challenges, and it's going to be like that the entire game. So I am excited to see this matchup go through, looking at how these teams are playing so far, seeing the quickness, the pace. This is definitely going to be a good matchup between the two. And we'll see if this is, I think the most important, most intriguing part is this going to be like high scoring or is it going to be low scoring with a lot of defensive plays? And so far, it's been defensive plays monstrally by first place so far. They've been kind of stuck on defense. They've had a couple chances, but it's been a lot of defense for them. XWee's going up here, missing the aerial and just kind of colliding in midair with an opponent. But defense is going to be the main name of the game here so far for both teams. First place got to find a way to counterattack.
Yeah, and I think so much as find a way to control a possession, because it's just been a lot of back and forth, where it's very short bursts of possession for both teams, realistically speaking. I mean, through the first 90 seconds, we haven't seen an elongated possession from either side. That one just barely is not going across the line after Nina's going to get that one to come out. But, I mean, I think extending plays just a little bit is going to be a difference maker here for which team is going to be able to get that first goal.
And capitalizing on opponents' mistakes and just in general, like I see that shot going wide right there when no one's back on defense. If Nino just puts that one on net, it goes in because there's no one back on the defensive rotation. So it's just making all your shots count, I guess. You have to try and always see if you can get it on net because sometimes it will just absolutely go in. And that's one of the most crucial parts of Rocket League is, especially when you're going higher in the ranks, you have to make every shot count. We see a defensive miss, but a nice recovery there from Nino to get that one back in their possession on the other side of the field. But 2.5 minutes gone, just about halfway through this game, and not anything crazy so far. We've seen a good save from first place a couple times here and there, but like you said, it's been a toss of possession back and forth. There hasn't been any really creation of crazy plays, teamwork plays. It's just been shot on goal, just throw it the other way, clear it the other way, and just do the same thing over and over again. And that's maybe where we'll see that first mistake come through is once one of those teams makes a mistake on defense, because we have already seen it get close a couple of times on both sides of the ball with a whiff off the touch initially. Like right there, XWeez could have gotten capitalized on. His touch wasn't exactly the greatest, still basically put it in the middle of the field, but couldn't capitalize on that one. And now it's a 1v2 for Vok here, and it's not going to work out. First place finds a good team play. Slyrix going to score that one off the pass from Nino.
Nice little chip up over the top and a good challenge. And that's about all you can do at that point when you're in a 1v2.
Yeah.
You just challenge the initial attacker and just try to get a deflection, try to get something off to slow that down, allow your teammate to reset, but too little too late. Instead, goes over the top, gets the shot and gets the goal scored. And I think the point to bring up about how this is playing out for both these teams and why we're having these long, just drawn out segments where it's not a solid possession on either side. It's a 10 to 15 seconds, cleared out, 10 to 15 seconds, cleared out, rinse and repeat for both orange and blue.
Ooh, good challenge.
There's not a lot of elevation play in this one. XWe's going to get the equalizer here as it goes over the top just past midfield. Again, another challenge, but Nino just unfortunately couldn't get enough of a nose on it. But we don't see a lot of altitude getting mixed into the gameplay of this one. A lot of this is relatively at the crossbar or below. You'll see a few chips that end up going above, but no one's really chasing higher than that. Sly off the kickoff. That's a nice little 1-2.
Yeah, gets it off kickoff off his own pass and is just going to slot that one right past Vok here, who was just going a little bit too fast, didn't know where the ball was, it seems. And that is just going to be an easy goal there to get them back in the lead. So a very important goal just to get back in this one and make sure they're on steady pace to keep on winning this game. Now we see a little bit of the goal scoring has opened up a little bit in the last 30 seconds or so. We see Slyrix once again connecting with Nino. Get that one above the net. Couldn't quite get that one to go in, but XW's with a great save going to stop that first initial shot. And a great clearance here with a open backfield. Does hit the backboard, doesn't exactly go in, but those are kind of opportunities I'm talking about where if you can at least just get it towards the net, scare the defense a little bit, they will make a mistake.
Yeah, in a situation like that where, you know, you get the long clear, it goes off the backboard, get in the air to follow a double touch. Get up and be able to try to do something about it, try to set up a double tap, a dunk, something to chase that ball, but instead they're just trying to keep the wheels on the ground. And I think that they could create a lot more opportunity for both sides and have success really on the offensive side a little more frequently if they were not so hesitant to get up in the air and try to create some more chances.
Yeah, with 20 seconds left, King Esports has to create some more chances here. Decent recovery there from Vok to be able to switch that one back to the other side, but teammate was not there in time. Good challenge once again from XWeez, which has been their kind of their focal point so far on offense, was some good challenges. That's really been it, though. They haven't been able to create as much as first place has, and that should just mark the end of the game. So game one goes in the hands of first place, but still a very close game nonetheless. It did seem like Slyrix and his teammate had a bit more of a chance there, and they had more chances in general in that game. So it seemed like overall first place was looking to be the winner of that one, but it was still obviously finished 2-1. It doesn't matter how many shots you have. If the other team scores 2 and you have 1 at the end of the day, you lose. So even if it's 20 shots to 2, it's math. It works out like that. But we'll go and take a look at replays of game one. See those 3 goals that went through, and of course powered by Microsoft ATL. Like we've said, first place was on defense a lot of the time for the beginning parts of the game, and then they kind of flipped that switch and were able to play a little bit more of their possession. And that's what we've been talking about so far, is that once they either team realistically found a little bit of possession, that's where they started to get more goals.
Yeah, and this is just a really good read off of this one by the coming off the kickoff by Sly and just knowing where that first touch is going to go, play it off the wall, get the shot on, even hit the brakes there just past midfield, recognizing that going a little too far forward. Okay, let the ball bounce, let's put it in play, and then get the shot on to get it inside that upright. So there is the recognition of opportunities created from that side, but just have to be able to find a little more. And unlike from both of them, I think they played well. I think that there could just be a little more possession for both teams. And I would like to see a little more aerial play because, frankly, there really wasn't a lot of it. And I think both of these teams could find a lot more success in their strategies if they do use that boost. I mean, it's called Rocket League, right? Rockets aren't grounded. Get in the air. Let's go.
Yeah, right. You're not wrong. I mean, that is where, especially the different level of plays go up in the rest of the competition, is those aerials and the speed that you can find those shots and try and get, especially I talk about a lot, defensively on the backboard is where you're going to get a lot of your clearances. A lot of much harder saves become a lot easier when you have someone on the backboard for the defensive clearances. So that'll be something interesting to note going into this game, as we see already first place back on defense once again. This is what happened in game number 1 too. So they're used to the similar setting where they get attacked on early, but they switched it up in the second half. Nino goes a little bit too far forward and kind of leaves an open net, but a bad touch from the opposing player on King Esports means that it's just an easy clearance here for Sly and his teammate. He hits that one straight through. Nino tries to get a second touch on it, not able to connect with that. Gets over one, but they're there for each other so far. X-Squeeze and his teammate Vok. X-Squeeze with no boost here, can't really develop anything with an air dribble, so it is just going to be Slyrix there with a simple touch to get that out of the opposing counter here, but still on defense. First place once again, a minute in. King Esports definitely dominates the early game so far, but they have to find a way to transition that to the rest of the game.
And this is the other side of the coin, right? Where I talk about in the first 2 minutes of game one or by the end of game one, you're going to be able to tell which team has it and which team doesn't. This is the other side of that 50-50 where both of these teams could have it, and you just don't know who's going to take it. Sly's done well again off of the read, just to follow up there from the initial attack from Nino. The crossbar not doing any favors, but Sly's going to get the follow-up, and the crossbar will help out the second time around. But it took a whole game where it's just quite literally a coin toss where you just don't know kind of how it's going to go from that. And sometimes in matchups, that's how it is. But as we've talked about teams with Mektos on them, that is a team that we kind of know how it is going to go. And the deepest condolences to Nick, who that's that's unlucky. I expected, but it's no. You don't want to wish that on anybody. Like, hey, by the way, you have to play pro players. Good luck.
Yeah, and not even in like the semifinals or the grand finals. Like, hey, we're round 3. We're not even in the quarterfinals yet. You're gonna have to face the best team in the tournament by far. Have fun. Just try not to get smashed too hard. And you're like, oh, okay. Like half crying, singing Bo Burnham's comedy special. Like you're not having a good time. It's all bad news once you see that team on the other side, or on your side of the bracket, I should say, which you've already talked about for teams like Cougar Lovers who dropped to gambling problems, now gambling problems, who's gonna have to face them. It's a rough side of the bracket for sure. I'd probably say our top 3 teams right there, at least from what we know, all are on the same side of the bracket. One already has been knocked out, and then 2 are going to have to be knocked out of this next quarterfinal. So it's a tough competition, a tough draw at least, because obviously we talked about it. Random seeding means that you realistically have a chance to go anywhere, have a really easy side of the bracket or an insanely difficult one, and went to the top half of this bracket, found that insanely difficult side. Bottom half, we still don't really know because a lot of teams I haven't seen before, so we'll see if they can match the skill level. But once you have 2 professional players on the same team playing with each other, by far you're going to be on the hardest side of the bracket no matter what.
Yeah, certainly not going to get any easier for those 2 teams. I think the other 7 teams of the quarterfinals, though, are applauding, or the other 6 teams are applauding. Like, yay, we don't have to play one of those 2, but we might have to play one of them regardless. So they just got to pick favorites as to which one they'd rather play versus the other. Either way, that is going to be a banger of a matchup with grand finals implications, not only just here today, but in the grand finals at the end of the month.
Yeah, and we'll see if first place can find a way back in this one, try and win the series so that they can advance themselves to the quarterfinals, which would be up against Discombobulate Banana. And Slyrix is going to do just that, find a way for them to get back into the lead once again off of his own passes. He doesn't need any teammates. He finds a pass, gets this one on the crossbar, and it looks like maybe he could be considered an own goal, but was on crossbar, was on target. Just an unlucky touch in the net from one of the defending players for King Esports means that first place once again takes the lead. But it has looked like a better game so far from King Esports. That being said, they've kept their early dominance. They've been able to maintain it and put it over control. But just the pace of play from Nino and Slyrix, they're not going to stop. And they're going to get a 2-goal advantage in which every team kind of looks for. Get that extra goal lead and really solidify your chance to move on to the next series. That's exactly what they're going to do with that goal from Nino. Just outspeeds on a good touch. Able to put that one top bins. And now with a minute and 30 seconds, King Esports, who has, I wouldn't say struggled for goals, but has struggled to create chances so far, needs to find 2 goals.
Yeah, and just try to find something on the offensive side as another shot goes just wide from first place. But I think the opportunities that first place have taken has given them the obvious edge, not only in the scoreboard, but in the game itself. And, how they have this little bit of a favor in the series just because of the way that they're playing, the consistency they have on the offensive front, and the shots that they can follow up with. I think Nino and Sly both have really good reads on this and try to find holes in the defense where King Esports, they're doing good on the defensive stance, but even right there with the double commit, both of them coming across, it's very difficult to be able to follow that and then translate it to an offensive attack. But even on a decent offensive attack, you can't get anything out of it because it's just so impulsive. There's no setup to it. You don't have a backdoor opportunity. You don't have the follow-up chance. It's just a shot on and hope for the best.
Yeah, and that's going to be their best chance by far in this series, I would say, to get a goal. And that's just Nino pumping it right over Vok in net. And that's the capitalizing goal. That's going to be the one that probably sends them into the quarterfinals. That is just rude. As you could say, Vok was not ready for the little jump up. It's very difficult when 1v1s like that when you're in Rocket League, because there's so many things they can do. They can keep it low, they can keep it dribbling, they can flick it up. There's a lot of things, a lot of different ways that they can score in that area, so it's really difficult to kind of read that sometimes. And X-Squeeze and Vok have to find a way to get 3 goals in 15 seconds, in which they've struggled to get 2 goals in 10 minutes in the last 2 games. So I don't think realistically the comeback is there. Like we said, they had a great chance. If they scored that last chance, it's 3-2, and you're 30 seconds left. Suddenly, it's a much different game. But with that extra goal, with that being the finalizing finish, 4-1 for first place, as they advance themselves into the quarterfinals against Discombobulated Banana, and that is going to be it. That's going to be the end of the run there for King Esports. Both the King Esports teams, unfortunately, out of this competition. But of course, like I said, there's always next week, so make sure to sign up for qualifier number 3 if you want another chance. I mean, even if you win this qualifier, you can still play qualifier next week. So it's nice. You can get some money every week. But let's go take a look at the replays of that game. It was once again, a very close start. It looked like King Esports had a very dominant first minute or so, first minute and a half. And then they just couldn't quite get back on target here, as once again, powered by Microsoft ATL. Of course, these are where we in both games, realistically, it looked like King Esports had some really great starts. They 2.5 minutes in on both games, they were attacking really well, had a lot of great chances, just couldn't kind of quite convert them. And that's where you face the challenges, and why that cutoff going into the top 8 especially is you have to make your chances count. If you can't make your chances count, there are going to be teams that will make their chances count. Like you look at first place, basically every chance they've had, they were able to convert it or find a way to at least make it difficult for the enemy team. And that's not something, or that is something that you have to be able to do constantly and consistently going into the top half of the bracket.
And looking at how it's going to go with first place moving on in this one, for the 60 to 70% of this match, it's just a lot of scrambling, a lot of just kind of hit the ball, follow it, see where it goes, and see what they can, without a whole lot of really efficient setup of any offensive attacks, or just taking advantage of miscues from the opposing team, which is a thing that you can do, because a win is a win regardless of how you get it. But once you do get into the quarterfinals, the semifinals, you're playing teams that have someone like Mectos on, like Toxic, like Kieran, like Smokes, a handful of them knocked out or not prevalent today. But this is a thing that you cannot just coast on through this qualifier, because it will not get you to the finals. It will not get you walking away with money in your pocket today. You have to be able to find something, extend that other 30 to 20, 30, 35% where you're just not really creating those plays, having the efficiency on offense, having passing plays, getting in the air, the aerial control, the shots on, the double touches, the dunks, all of that very technical, mechanical Rocket League play. Get that improved, get that to a finite art, and then you're going to have a significantly better chance advancing into the event.
Yeah, I agree. And going into the quarterfinals, we have my most anticipated, probably my favorite match of the entire tournament. I think this will be better than even the grand finals might be. This is Beast Lords versus Gambling Problems. This is going to be the best matchup by far, I think.
Yeah, you'll hear no objection from me. That this is probably, I mean, like, you look at how they got here, the match prior, with Cougar Lovers and Gambling Problems. Maybe that was a contender for another best match of today's event, just because of the random seeding.
All on the same side of the bracket.
Of what we're going to see. Yeah, I wholeheartedly believe this is it.
Yeah, and obviously, if you don't know the hype surrounding this game, Mektos and Freshness, we've talked about it before. That's international beast lords for you. Both players, both professional players on Ghost Gaming. So they are teammates already in the Rocket League scene. They're professionals. They've been in RLCS in multiple seasons. So they're a very good team. And now they bring it over into duos against teams that are not even close, I would say, in skill level wise. I mean, you could be SSL and you could still be miles apart from the way this team plays, right? Like, that's the thing about being professional, is there is a huge gap on how you play as a team going into the later parts of the tournament. That being said, Kieran and Stealth is a duo that I could see that could match their potential.
That being said, put an asterisk on that, because not only is that a duo that I think could match it, I think this is also a thing there's a very key word in that, a duo, where they
Right.
might be a lot better off with trios. This is just kind of a casual, lean back in the recliner. We're having a good time with some casual Rocket League. And yeah, they're going to sweat because they're good and they have a reputation to uphold. But it is a duos kind of thing. And this is, what they are accustomed to, just competing and winning competitions. But you look at Kiernan, who is, one of the best solo players outright in Rocket League period.com. Then you add on Stealth with that, and I think it's a great 1-2 combo. And now let's see what they can do against the likes of Ghost Gaming's representation here in this, because as we said, this is it. I hope you got your snacks, hope you got your drinks, because this is one to behold.
Yeah, this is going to be an exciting game. Let's get some hype. Let us know who you think is going to win this game, of course, in chat. Best of 3 Beast Lords versus Gambling Problems. They could just call themselves Ghost Gaming at this point without the alias. But, of course, Kieran and Stealth on Gambling Problems. Mektos and Freshness with apparently a 9-goal lead, or a 9-game lead in this best of 3. We'll get that fixed. But going into the first game here, it's going to be fast-paced. I mean, without a doubt, these are... two professional players, and then Kieran and Stealth, who are easily both SSL and have played it so much together. You can see it already.
Ooh,
a demo to start the business, and Stealth is going to connect with Kieran off the corner here. Kieran finds a demo on one of the defending players. I believe it was Freshness. Mektos stuck in a 1v2. Tried to recover as much as he could, but that first goal is going to be huge for Gambling Problems in this game.
Just even something as simple and as small as that, just watching the quick 1-2. Now they're going to get another one after Keenan gets a touch down in his own box and just sends it long. Freshness tried to get a second touch on, but Stealth gets that back boost and gets around fast enough that Mektos can't get back in time. And this is a statement to make. This is watching this high caliber play where setting momentum very early in the game is showcasing the importance here.
Yeah, it is. I mean, this is going to be a huge start for them. Like we've already talked about, we already hyped up Mektos and Freshness enough. They don't really need hype to kind of tell you what kind of players they are, but we've already talked about the wild card that is Kieran and Stealth, is that these are two fantastic players that have had good history in IATL so far. Kieran's won one with his teammates in, I believe, the 3v3 setting with Smokes and his teammates. So, obviously we've already seen Kieran was, from what I can remember from those 3v3 series, he was one of the best anchors that I've seen in a long time, as far as playing that third man anchor role and being able to save quite easily. So having that lead already, knowing that Kieran has good defensive capabilities, means a lot of good news for Gambling Problems in this first game. With that lead, with a chance to just maintain it, like we've seen top Cougars go out before, if you just keep Mektos and Freshness from scoring the rest of this game, you can try and keep scoring yourself, but the more you just try and keep them off their loop, it's the easier this game gets. You just have to keep it out of your net. You can keep booming it downfield if you want, but just challenging them, making it awkward, making it difficult, you're going to win this game wholeheartedly with a 2-goal lead especially.
And I think that 2-goal lead in the first 30 seconds is really what they're coasting off of right now. Just the sense that you don't have to worry about creating any more pressure. You don't have to, feel like you have to score. You don't have to be playing lockdown defense because of the fact that you have this insurance lead. Even with Kieran getting a shot on just wide, I mean, that's just a thing that you have the liberty to do. You can create some offensive presence on the other side because you have this insurance lead. On the other side, the pressure is all on the Beast Lords here with Freshness and Mektos. They've got to find an angle. Stealth's got to try to find a way to solo this one out. Can't do so. Kieran's shot goes high as well. But they are still applying this pressure, still trying to put that third goal up halfway through this game. And Beast Lord's got to find an answer.
that was a whole escapade of problems on both sides, realistically. Freshness hits it back. I don't know if intentionally or not, but puts his teammate in an awkward situation. Nice bump from Mektos to get him off the ball right there. Still in a dangerous spot, though, as Freshness is able to recover. But like I said, Freshness hits it backfield, makes it really difficult, makes it awkward. And then you see, I believe it was Stealth trying to collect himself, try and get Mektos in a 1v1. Does a nice little fake initially, but couldn't keep that momentum going forward, so couldn't quite find a scoring chance there. Now Mekto's going to get a decent flick. Now, Stealth with no boost, not going to be able to do too much, but Kieran with a nice challenge in midfield. And we're ticking below 2 minutes, by the way, with not really any chances from Freshness and Mekto so far. I mean, it's been a pretty lights-out game on defense from Stealth and Kieran, even to not even allow them to get shots. And like off the backboard right there, what I keep stressing so much of in the higher difficulty you go, the more important it is to have someone on that backboard, because it makes your defending chances a lot simpler to save. Great shot there from Mektos, but crossbar and down, can't get that one to go in. And this is still a 2-goal deficit. Like, don't get me wrong, this is still a big comeback for Beast Lords to have to take game 1 here.
Just because of what they've been going through as well. I mean, Freshness finally gets something because they find a gap in the defense. And I think that is probably how Freshness and Mektos are going to find the way to get past this defense. They've tried their over-the-tops from over the goal. They've tried their corners to play to the center. They've tried all of that stuff up close and personal. It's just not working out. Playing from midfield and trying a little bit more range in their offensive attack, I think, is the way that this offense is going to succeed, because Kieran and Stealth are shutting down everything in their defensive zone. There's no chance at all that Mektos and Freshness are going to break through that.
Yeah, no chance indeed. I mean, we've already seen it happen once, but with 45 seconds left, like we've already talked about, it is a large comeback. Kieran and Stealth making maybe a slight mistake there that leads to a goal, and that's exactly what happens. So that,
not so large,
in a nutshell, is what you can't do in general. I mean, a small mistake from Kieran backflipping because his teammate called him off of it, puts him at 0 boost on the rotate back, and Freshness with a great clearance. Mekto's just going to chase that ball in. Those are the kind of mistakes I'm talking about, where it is a very difficult mistake to pinpoint, but a team like Mektos and Freshness, they will see that and easily be like, oh, they had a communication error here, let's go score. Like, if you just get a good clearance, I'll just send it upfield. It's just as simple as that sometimes, and that's exactly what they did to connect right there. So really impressive from Mektos and Freshness to find that mistake and to be able to capitalize on that one. This is where gambling problems, we have already talked about it, has to remain consistent for the rest of the game, because they had a great start, almost a great finish here from Kieran, but Mektos able to find that save, get this one out of danger, maybe an overtime for game 1 here. With 5 seconds left, though, still time to have a shot. Freshness going to find the save, though, with 3 seconds left. Going to drop in. Overtime's going to start. 2-2 is going to be the first case. This is only game 1, everybody. This is going to be a fantastic series.
And of course, it's going to be these two teams and a demo on the side, leaving the door wide open if they can. And Kieran is going to take advantage. And 7 seconds is all it takes. We're going to walk away with the first game's victory after holding on to a 2-0 lead for so long. 3-2 is the final score. The gambling problems will take game number 1 in this best of 3. But of course, these two teams are going to be the first teams that we see go to extra time. It just has to be them, right? Like, it's nobody else is going to do it. It's going to be these two that do that. And from what we saw out of this, I mean, the first minute that we saw Kieran and Stealth really just lay it on. They get their 2 goals scored. We can take a look at the replays, which will showcase exactly how fast they came out of the gate swinging. I mean, they got those first 2 goals virtually in the first 45, 60 seconds. And then after that, it was just complete lockdown defense. That was immaculate, impressive. I could not believe how efficiently they were shutting down these 2 players between Mektos and Freshness. But then once Mektos and Freshness kind of recognized and realized that, add a little more longevity to the game, Freshness taking the shot from just past midfield, that was kind of the opening factor that let them start to get something going, get those gears moving. And the second one just off the defensive mistakes. But what a series this is going to be. I'm honestly disappointed this is only a best of 3.
I am expecting this to go to game 3. Like, I realistically, like you said, they had a great start in that game, which led them to the overtime in which they found that goal. But I think game 2 is where Mektos and Freshness kind of find their footing, find a way to get back into the series and get game number 2, and then it goes to a crazy competitive game 3. I this, like we've already talked about, we've already hyped this series up enough, but this is realistically your grand finals. Like, this is what we're kind of expecting going to the end of this one, is that these are two of the best teams in the tournament by far. We already knew that going into this. I mean, gambling problems less so, until we looked at the team. We're like, oh yeah, I remember that now. Now I know it's Kieran and Stealth. I remember that we've been highly underrating them this whole time, and they're putting on a show. And obviously, to be up a game in this series in which they realistically were hoping not to get 2-0'd, I would assume this is an incredible start for them to momentum wise and to go into the rest of the series. Now, having the option, obviously you don't want to lose the next game, but having the option to lose the next game is actually really, like, good, I guess. It's a good feeling, because you know you can still kind of play competitively, still play strong, but if things don't go your way, everyone gets lucky, everyone gets unlucky in a series, and if that happens to be game 2, you get unlucky, you have that game 3 to still come back and basically put it into a best of one kind of situation, in which this is going to be exciting, like we said.
The worst part about all of this is that there is only a maximum of 3 games. That these two teams deserve a best of 5, best of 7. Like, it just because of how amazing that series would be. But we can only have the best of 3 in the quarters. This is a grand finals-esque match. So it is worthy of a best of 5. But you look at it, the other side is only one of these teams could potentially qualify for the grand finals at the end of the month. The other one is going to have to re-sign up for next week's qualifying event if they want to play again in the grand finals at the end of the month, because it's still the quarterfinals. Like, we're not even in the top 4 yet. Like, this is still the top 8, and these two are facing off against each other. So it's a heartbreak for one and just all smiles on the other side.
Yeah, it is. I mean, and it's going to be incredible. Like we've already been talking about this series, like now you can't really predict it because of that way that first game goes. If they can keep their momentum, win game 2, I'm in shock. Like, it's suddenly, the number 1 team goes out in a 2-0 fashion in the quarterfinals, nonetheless. It is going to be incredible to see if that happens. But of course, you have to also expect on the other side of the coin is that they are going to take back game 2. They're going to come back strong. They're going to not give up 2 goals early and let them have that advantage, because that was, I mean, realistically, obviously it was a super fast start. It was a great game from gambling problems, but then they started to make some mistakes. The consistency dropped down a little bit, and that's where Mektos and Freshness found those 2 goals back in return, in which they brought it to overtime. So if they don't make those same mistakes early, if they don't leave the opportunities early on for gambling problems, I think that is where Mektos and Freshness could start to create a much better game plan for themselves, kind of stick to their strategy going into game number 2. And I think that's realistically what they were planning on in the first game, and just kind of got out of hand way too quickly to have 2 goals scored on you within 30 seconds. So that is going to be a change of pace, I think, for game 2. I don't think it's going to be quick scoring on either side. Obviously, the more you go up in skill, the harder it is to score goals. I mean, that just can be said. You have to really try and create something or have a really good shot in order to be able to get a goal scored. So to see that many goals that early, 2 goals that early from gambling problems is realistically not going to happen for the rest of the series.
Yeah, and you look at it in the way that you see the score lines from, teams of like this caliber. 5, 6 goals is probably about as many combined as you're probably going to see, right? You maybe a 4-2, maybe a 5, if garbage time, whatever. But like, that's about where you're going to draw the line. Like, it's really not going to be a high scoring affair. And I am on board with you. I don't think it's going to be another 2 goals out of the gate. I think that all of a sudden Mektos and Freshness have recognized and realized that Kiernan poses a threat off the kickoff. And in the first 30 seconds, you don't want to give up 2 goals, obviously, for logistical reasons. Like, that's, nobody wants to go down 2 goals in the first 30 seconds of a game. But giving up a single goal in the first minute is a huge detriment to the way the game plays, because of after how long we went after those 2 goals scored of nothing, where nothing happened. There was no goals, and it took so long to finally get 1 back. There was a minute and some change left in the game before they finally got 1 goal back. And being able to go 3 minutes plus without any scoring on either side, every single goal matters that much more.
Yeah, I agree. And obviously we've already talked about it. It's going to be probably low scoring. I mean, like, you're not expecting there to be a whole lot of goals. And so we've already talked about it, but you have to be consistent in order to score any chance. And like we mentioned in that game, which the reason that Mektos and Freshness brought it back up to 2-2 is you have to capitalize on on the enemy's mistakes. And that was a very slight mistake. Like, it was a small rotational error where Kieran got called off the ball and suddenly had to backflip and try and get back on rotation. They saw that immediately. Freshness was able to clear it and just send it on a counterattack. Like, it's that small minuscule area where you have to be able to the later you go into this tournament, later you go into Rocket League in general, competitive wise, the higher rank you are, you have to be able to make those split second decisions. Be like, oh, there's no way he's going to get back in time. Let's just send it. Let's try and get this one back and get this going for us. And that's something that we can see where realistically Mektos and Freshness could do really well. But it has to be said, if Gambling Problems doesn't have a good start to this second game, I'm intrigued to see if they get destroyed, if that was a sign telling, like, because they started so well, they were able to finish off pretty easily, because they still slipped a little bit. We have to let that be known. It was 2-0 at one point, came back to 2-2. Yeah. Luckily they got into overtime and got the goal, but that can be said. If they don't have that kind of a start, do you think they can win the second game if they are on a kind of that same level, I guess, of Mektos and Freshness?
I think that this one, again, just put it to a coin toss. And I think that as we go into game two, to kind of get an idea as to where the momentum is going to start out, at the end of game number one, there was, in the last 15 seconds, an attack from Mektos and Freshness that was incredibly risky. After Kieran got that shot on, they almost had the chance to get that go-ahead goal in regular time, because Mektos and Freshness went on the attack with maybe combined 60 boost. And after all of the boost was taken across the field, there was not a lot to be done to be able to contest anything to go the other way. And that's why Kieran got a really good shot on with about 5 ticks left on the clock. And unfortunately, it didn't go through to give them the victory in regular time. They're still able to get it in extra time, but that's just another small mistake that teams are capitalizing on, and it goes both ways.
Yeah, let me tell you, I think a lot of the top 10 next week is going to be a lot of this series, because these are, I mean, like we've already talked about, you have to work hard for your goals. You have to work even harder to make some of these saves. And Mektos has already started this one off with an incredible save, basically full speed, full boost into the corner. Almost has a second touch there off the backboard, but couldn't get that one on goal. But this is going to be a lot. This is, as Rolo once in chat, it's going to be a sweaty game, and Freshness is going to find the first goal to start this series. And kind of what we were expecting initially was that lead to be in favor of Beast Lords right away. Mektos and Freshness, I think, maybe pinching right there. Not exactly sure if that's what happened, but nonetheless, a fast shot goes to the back of the net. Not a whole lot of time to react to something like that. So that is going to be a good start for them. Something I did want to mention last game that now is a great time to mention is kickoffs strategy is something that goes the higher level you go as well. Being able to fake kickoffs and go into the back left and back right kickoffs is super important. That's almost a huge error if they can recover here. They both have to commit, but that should just be, oh my gosh, Stealth is able to find the save once again. Gambling Problems made like 3 or 4 mistakes in a row right there. To not get scored on is incredible. Never mind. Mektos finds it. Mektos able to find that air dribble and get that one back in. It was almost saved from Kieran and Stealth, but Mektos going to find a challenge here. Kieran kind of stuck on the backboard. Can't really go anywhere else with that. So Mektos finds a second goal here for Beast Lords.
Yeah, and that's just one of those things, like, you have a wooden shield up, right? And the other dude's got a big old hammer. And eventually, that hammer's going to break through that shield. And they hit 3, 4, 5 times after a few mistakes back to back to back to back. And they finally get the goal to go through. Mektos and Freshness, again, at this level, teams are going to take advantage of mistakes, and they're going to apply the pressure. Flip the script this time. It wasn't in the first 30 seconds, but now Beast Lords are the ones with the insurance lead here, coming up on the halfway point.
Yeah, coming up on the halfway point with Beast Lords having a much better strategy, much better game plan that they were expecting going into that first game. This is exactly what I'm sure they were hoping was going to be the case for the first one, but this is like I was saying, if Gambling Problems doesn't have that similar lead like they had in game one, is this what happens in the rest of the series? And so far, it's kind of a little bit telling. It's been a lot of Kieran and Stealth realistically making mistakes, really stuck on defense, and having quite a bit of a struggle to create attacking chances once again. So, if that is the case for the rest of the series, if Mektos and Freshness can find an early start, that's going to be the case where they're going to keep a lead in this series. You see Kieran waiting on the backboard. Fresh is going to try and juke him off a little bit. Kieran, very nicely done, though. Able to read that one in a pretty tough 1v1, especially when you're upside down in your own net. Not the easiest ways to read that play. Mekto's going to have a decent second touch, but Stealth is there for the clearance once again. This is a lot of back and forth. This is a really difficult game for Gambling Problems so far with how fast Mektos and Freshness are playing this game.
Yeah, it going both ways. You know, where as soon as Kieran or Stealth get it in their hands, any given moment, a simple slip-up is going to be enough. And just like that, Stealth's going to keep that one in the air, play it off the wall, get the double tap, and dunk it down to get there first on the board. Minute 40 to go. And not going to say we're watching a repeat of the last game, but minute and some change, the team down 2-0 finally gets their goal on the board. So now give it another 45 to 60 seconds. They should be able to get one back. We'll be locked up at 2 goals apiece.
Yeah, and that would be obviously not the greatest situation for Beast Lord. But yeah, if we're sticking to the script here, exactly what happened in the first game. But that realistically would mean Beast Lords takes game 2 in overtime. So if the script is going well, I guess that's what will be the case in this second game.
I hope they read it
with a nice touch initially, and I hope either one of them can read. Oh. The script is going its way so far, though, as Stealth is able to find this one off of Kieran. Kind of just awkward here from Mektos and Freshness. They couldn't really find a clearance there. Both got next to each other, and then obviously just Stealth easily able to capitalize on that one and push that one into the top right. But yeah, with a minute and 15 seconds still, suddenly there's a huge difference, huge change of pace in this game. And of course, Gambling Problems are up in the series. So if they find a third goal here and are able to keep that lead, they win the series outright.
Here's the thing, just because of the fact that it only took 26 seconds for them to get back-to-back goals, regardless of who scores the third goal, I think that's the one that wins this game, and it's not in overtime. Just because of, as you mentioned, the pacing of this game has all of a sudden ramped up where I don't think they want to settle for anything. They don't want to deal with another overtime game. They don't want to have to go extra. They want to end this here and now, and regardless of who takes it, the third goal is going to be that lone difference maker. Obviously, forehead. Score more goals, you win.
Obviously, the game-winning goal is probably going to be a huge goal in this game, I would assume. But Mekto's going to find a decent clearance here. 20 seconds left. There's not a whole lot of time once again, so we are going back towards what Game 1 script happened. Mektos with a decent musty flick right there, now able to keep control of it, and a nice save from Stealth, and another save from Kieran right there to get this one back in possession here. Freshness almost with a good second touch, but struggling once again still to get this one on net. 3 seconds left. It might just be another overtime game, in which we love to see in this series so far. Game number 2 going to overtime. Same scoreline as last time. Oh, and they go for a double demo off kickoff. That's a first that we've ever seen. As now Mektos and Freshness try and see if they can take game number 2 so that they don't drop in a 2-0 fashion in the quarterfinals.
We're past the 7-second threshold, so going a little bit longer than game 1's overtime. But yeah, that double demo immediately just really got them set off explosively here in this overtime game, because you immediately just bring it down to a 1v1, and now it's a clean slate as to who's going to be able to win out. You know, you're able to get your rotations, get the boost set up, try the double touch for the dunk, and all of a sudden Gambling Problems, after their back-to-back goals, minute 40, minute 15 left in regulation, they seem like they're the ones more in control of the offensive side compared to Beast Lords.
Yeah, and so far with a minute, not a whole lot has happened in overtime. Freshness and Mektos still on defense here with a decent chance, but Stealth is going to outpace Freshness, so is able to at least have a chance here. Mektos going to miss as well, so that could have been a chance we see where Kieran and Stealth connects. Kieran was looking for Stealth there on the right side of the field, but Stealth was going back for boost. Chance maybe developing here, but Mektos with an easy enough save. That's what I'm talking about with these early challenges. Just constantly keep them on their side of the field, try and take the corner boost, and suddenly Mektos and Freshness are in a rough position to try and stop this one. Freshness is going to find a shot. Stealth's going to find a save, though, once again. And now ticking on a minute and a half. We still have to see if either one of these teams can find the next scoring opportunity, because it has not been anything fruitful so far in overtime.
Another demo here to try to create something on this side, but at that point, they just can't do anything. Try to pinch off the ground to get in front of the defense, but still can't find much. Stealth just runs out of juice there in the air. Freshness going to spike it down. Also out of boost as well. The midfield boost taken right before Freshness can get there. So an awkward bounce from Mektos, potentially leaving something open, but there's just no backdoor play off the back post. Again, Gambling Problems on the attack, looking for a flick reset, but can't get it. And now we just go right back to this back and forth to see who's going to find their next opportunity.
Luckily enough, every other quarterfinal game should be done after this series because of how long these overtime will take. And I'm still expecting Beast Lords to take this one out. I still think they have the chance here. Of course, it'll be a culture shock if they do lose this game lose this series in a 2-0 fashion. It would be something no one's expecting, but something that Mektos and Freshness will be pretty upset about, I would assume, if they go out in the quarterfinals. But like we've already said, this is basically a grand finals matchup in the quarterfinals, so realistically, both teams can't be too sad about what happens in this series, but you can't be sad about not making the qualifying placements or winning. So, there's always that on top of things. Freshness gets past Kieran here. That's a pretty important thing to note. Freshness could maybe connect with Mektos here in the midfield, but Kieran read that, and Stealth was already pushing up onto that moment. So Mektos going to carry this one out. Has a chance here with Freshness. Mektos gets demoed. That goes near the crossbar, but not in. And now we're taking on 3 minutes. Momentum reset once again, and now it's just Mektos with an awkward touch, trying to get that over to Freshness. Chance here for Gambling Problems, potentially, but passed away.
Yeah, Stealth just lost possession and then follow with the demo onto Kieran. Not a whole lot that's going to really evolve into, but such great back and forth play between these two incredible teams. As you said, grand finals caliber matchup here in the quarters. Gambling Problems looking for that lone goal to send them to the semifinals. And they've gotten so close. The Beast Lords have gotten close to try to equalize this, make it a best of one in this extra time. We've almost got a whole extra game of Rocket League in this overtime session. Potentially try to find their first mistake, but both Mektos and Freshness can get back to get a little bit of a nose on and not let Kieran take it solo. But now you're starting to see the situation where Kieran's here on this side of the field. I imagine Stealth's doing just the same with a lot of boost in their pockets and trying to just pin this defense of the Beast Lords back.
And we're going on another full-time game here, by the way. 40 more seconds until this is just a 2-length long game in which, I mean, this is sweaty, man. At the point of overtime and this much into overtime, you are so nervous to make one single mistake. This is a chance here, though, and it goes past Bolt. Freshness is going to be able to find that one. Game 2 is going to go in the hands of Beast Lords. Mektos able to drip that one, get Stealth off of a awkward recovery, and then really nicely placed from Freshness to get that into the right corner past both defenders. That is only game 2. We have game 3 still. I mean, I know that was a 10-minute game, so that was basically 2 games in one, but overtime going to Beast Lords, bringing it to that third game of the series, exactly what we were hoping for. It's exactly what happened, and now I couldn't be happier. We're already seeing, like I said, quarterfinal matchups finishing up, but this is my favorite matchup so far, and it's definitely playing out for the fans and for the people. I mean, this has been an incredible series through 2 games. Exact same script as followed, 2-2 going to overtime, and the team that was originally winning ends up winning in overtime again. So let's go and take a look at the replays of that wonderful game, though. Game number 2, of course, and replays powered by Microsoft ATL. I mean, this was, I can't even remember what happened in regular time considering how much overtime action came through, but it was once again the same thing where Freshness and Mektos had a great lead. They just couldn't hold it. And so now maybe, is that a recurring thing on both sides? If that is the case, then I can't predict game 3 whatsoever.
I think we just go, instead of someone getting a 2-0 lead, it's just a 2-2 tie. I mean, you get 1-1 back and forth and then a 2-2. Like, it's just, nobody's giving an inch on either side, but still watching the other team be able to come back, Kieran and Stealth scoring with a minute 41 and a minute 20 left, being able to get that 2-2, send us to extra time. And there wasn't any incredible opportunities in closing seconds like there was in game 1, but that goal right there, Freshness did a really good job at reading the defense, trying to slide across from right to left and recognizing that they're already too far committed. I mean, the defense was pretty much at the midpoint of that goal by the time Freshness was even close to it. And on the other side, Stealth just in the back of the net, and there's nothing that Stealth can do to recover from that. So Freshness just read that perfectly, put it where no defender could get to it, and made sure that they went ahead. So yeah, we're sticking true to the script. Game 3, flip a coin. may I be so bold as to proclaim that the winner of this series probably is going to win this qualifier today.
I would be so bold to agree with you there as well. I mean, just with how incredible the series has been, you can tell both of these teams are playing close to the top of their game. I mean, we've seen some mistakes, some very small mistakes back and forth from both teams. And something we forgot to mention as well is that we're going to EU to NA on both of these servers. So that game was on NA. This is going back to EU for game 3. So in favor of the which makes sense now that Gambling Problems was so dominant early on in game 1 because they were on their servers. Same thing again for game 2 is that Freshness and Mektos were on their servers. So now going back to game 3, does the same pattern follow? Does the script play out here? Do they get an early lead? Do they come back, Mektos and Freshness? And does it go to overtime once again? We'll see if that's going to be the case, but for game 3, it looks like they were all so nervous they had to go and take a bathroom break quickly. So game 3 will start shortly. But, it was, I don't blame them. It was a tense game. They have to recollect themselves going into game 3 here.
Yeah, just a quick run, and all of a sudden, okay, wash your hands off and splash a little water on your face just because of how sweaty that game was. But now get into this best of 1 into the semifinals. I mean, this is going to be an interesting start, but this time around, even on the other servers, Mektos is the one that gets the first goal after a great 1-2 above the defenders. 8 seconds in, and the Beast Lords take the lead.
Super important for them. We already were talking about how important it is when you switch servers to get that lead on the opponent's servers. Mektos able to do that already, potentially with a second chance there, but nice dribble from Kiernan to take that away from him. Mektos with a redirect, but Stealth is already waiting in the midst. And now a clearance here in midfield leaves Mektos waiting, but Freshness with no boost could be in a difficult situation here. It hits the post and it bottom left corner from Stealth equalizes this game right back up immediately. So already a different change of pace in the first 2 games. No 2-0 start for either team this time. It is now going to be equalized immediately.
I don't want to say I called it, but we got a 1 and we got a 1. So now we should go back and forth to a 2 and a 2. I just didn't expect it to be a 1 and a 1 in the first 26 seconds of the game, just because of how this plays out and how much more defensive play we get in the mid-game stages, where it just completely goes across the board as to, okay, now you get a possession, okay, now you get a possession and you go, and nothing happens. They don't score anything else after that until the last 90 seconds of the game, where all of a sudden they're like, wait a minute, we got to have more goals in order to win this game. We should probably score again.
Yeah, and we'll see what team's going to take that advice. It is going to be off of a deflection from one of the defenders there for Beast Lords. Gambling Problem is going to find their leading goal here and get them back in this one. It looks like Freshness, just unlucky on the touchdown. Stealth was there for the challenge and gets that one right back in. So lead once again here for Gambling Problems. With only a minute in, we are up to 3 goals already. Everything has flown out the window. As soon as that bathroom break went through, it seems like chaos has just commenced between both sides. And now we'll see if Mektos and Freshness can find a way back in this one. Is that just open net? Okay. Where is Mektos and Freshness at?
The chaos. Let the chaos reign. And I'm more than okay with watching this. This is, we always talk about in the grand finals, as I'm sure we will in a couple of games' time, but there's always a single outlier of a series. And if this is the one where all of a sudden we just watch the defense thrown to the wayside and say, you know what? Let's go on an offensive shootout and see who can outscore. And we're going to watch 5 goals put up on both sides. I am more than okay with that.
Yeah, that was almost an incredible play coming out from Stealth and Kiernan right there, as they were able to find some really great play together, but weren't able to actually capitalize on it. Freshness was able to stop that one. Mektos now has to try and find a way back into this game. They are now down 2 goals here, which we've seen both teams mount a comeback, so it's not over just yet, as Kiernan almost puts this one into the back of the net as well. Stealth is going to have another chance here. Going to take the initial touch, try and air dribble this one in. Gets past one off the backboard, can't find it, but Kiernan is going to find it, and that brings it up to 4-1 for Gambling Problems here. Mektos and Fraction struggling a little bit on the server switch, as it's just the pace of play from Kiernan and Stealth so far. They've been connecting. They've been making some great individual plays, and it ends up leading to cooperative teamwork. So very impressive so far from Gambling Problems to be up this much against the best team in the tournament without a doubt.
And that's just unlucky from Mektos' perspective. I mean, sitting in a great position for a defender, just tried to take a guess, go high or go low, guessed low, attack went high, and then the follow-up was just there. So just not a lot. As soon as the first save goes through, your teammate is out of the equation. There's no chance that they can get back to make the second save on. And that's just an easy one to give them a 3-goal lead here now. And Gambling Problem's looking really good now, but Mecto's going to be able to get one back after a nice pass there, going down midfield on the counter attack, winning that 50 out of the corner. Mecto's just in position. Defenders can't get back in time, and still 2 goals down, coming up on the halfway point, but it is feasible.
It is, yeah. I mean, there's obviously a lot of time in this game, so I think Mectos and Freshness could find the time to score a couple of these. We'll see if that's going to be the case. That one luckily goes off the post here, so Freshness and Mectos aren't down 3 once again, but they're getting ever so close to losing that 2-goal disadvantage once again, bringing that over to 3. Mectos with 0 boost, not going to be able to continue with that aerial dribble. And it now just drops that down to stealth here. Freshness with no boost. Mectos gets the bump, but no boost once again. Still for Freshness. Makes an awkward save, and Mectos can't get back in time. 3-goal lead back in the hands here for Gambling Problems. Stealth with the bump off to Mectos. And like I've already was saying, leading into that, Freshness had no boost that entire time. So he had to try and work with what he had, and there was not much he could do in that situation. So Mectos had to try and recover. Couldn't do so. Now, shockingly, a 3-goal disadvantage here for Mectos and Freshness. The 2 professional players on Ghost Gaming find themselves at a big disadvantage going into the last game of the series. Leading into the semifinals, almost a 6th goal to go through, but Freshness off the line, going to find a save.
And I really like what Kieran and Stealth are doing in this. Both of them now have tallied a goal where they've shown incredible patience, where they just catch the ball in striking position, let the defense kind of exhaust themselves in their position to lose all momentum, or just try to show their hand too early, and then they make their move to get the shot on, get past the defender, and get the goal scored. And that's why they find themselves up 3 right now. Mectos and Freshness trying to find an answer back, but I really like the gameplay here in game number 3 from Gambling Problems.
Yeah, and just an unbelievable scoreline keeps stacking up even more as Kieran finds a pass off the right wall to himself and is just able to slot that one in. Definitely seems like there's been an empty net a couple of times in this game from Mectos and Freshness, whether that just means they're playing super aggressively, trying to get this lead back in their favor, or just some rotational errors, which is very, very rare to see out of these two. It is happening. Mectos finds a one back, but it's still 3 goals down. They have lost a lot of potential chance in this game to try and make a comeback because they kept bleeding. As soon as those goals went in, they just kept going, and it's just been really rough for them to try and get back in this one. They've never really been close. They've never really had a great chance to get back in this so far. So if they can find a kickoff goal here, another short goal in, with less than a minute or so left, maybe they have a chance here, but that's another open net. That's another goal for Kieran. And it's just been the case so far in this game. Is just that's been the case 3 or 4 times now. It's just been an open net, and Kieran slots it in.
Yeah, there's just no recognition of a back post, a challenge, or realizing that there's an attack developing that quickly from Mectos to Freshness, and they just find themselves out of position. And unfortunately, they are giving up these goals to the Gambling Problems. But fortunate for Gambling Problems, they're realizing that these mistakes are being made, and they're taking full advantage of them. And as soon as they give up a goal to Mectos, they get 1, if not 2 back. So they're keeping this gap and keeping this margin between them and the Beast Lords. And I think after goal number 4 was 4-2, you get 5-2. That was pretty much the drawn line that this is about as good as it's going to get. Beast Lords are not going to have much closer of a score line than that, a 3-4 goal deficit. And that is going to be where Gambling Problems put their stamp on it, mark it, send the telegraph. This series good is done. They're moving on to the semifinals.
Yeah, this is way too much of a lead, and I just can't believe this game even shot itself to 10 goals. This was just the pace of play from Kieran and Stealth make it 11 as they get their 8th goal of this game, and just an incredible turnaround out of switching from 2 overtime games 2-2, and just a nonstop scoring affair here in the game number 3. Beast Lords just seemed out of it. I mean, there's, like we've already talked about, there was a couple situational errors on rotations where their goal was, I was question marked as to, I'm not even going to mention this anymore. I was questioning, I was like, I don't even see Mectos and Freshness near the net. How is that goal so open in one of the goals that Kieran scored? Like, they weren't even close to rotating back. So I think they tried to play super aggressive and it just didn't work out for them.
Yeah, and you put it into a perspective as to how this series went. Now, the initial point I was going to make about 20 seconds ago was in the first 2 games, we had 14 minutes and about 40 seconds of game played time and a combined 10 goals. And with 11 goals being scored here in this game, that 4 minutes and 40 seconds, we outscored the first 2 games, even with extra time. But now here we are, where single-handedly Gambling Problems has outscored the combined scores of the first 2 games, where it's 11-3 score line, and just a simple little deflection and just fun little stat track to keep note of that this is the outlier referred to. There's no reason the scoreline should be like this. And granted, you take the extra garbage time and you get 4 goals out of that and looking for the 5th, and still going to get denied out of that one. But we're just watching what they've done here. Gambling Problems really made a statement in this series, and I wholeheartedly expect them to continue their success through this bracket run, because this is, theoretically speaking, their hardest opponent out of the way. It should be relatively, comparatively easier for them to go through, but just what a phenomenal series from 2 incredible teams.
Yeah, no kidding. Let's take a look at the series replays as well. Microsoft are powered by Microsoft ATL. And I mean, it was incredible series. I mean, there's nonetheless it can be said. Obviously, that game 3 was wild. There's not anything we were expecting especially out of the first 2 games, both going to overtime. Extremely close, 2-2 comebacks for both teams on either side of the coin here. Obviously, game 1, Mektos and Freshness came back 2 goals. Game 2, it was the opposite, in which Kieran and Stealth were able to come back 2 goals and bring it. Both teams that were originally in the lead won overtimes, and then game 3 just, I don't know what the case was, but it was just a wide open affair for goal scoring for Kieran and Stealth. It just seemed Mektos and Freshness were not on the same page, or their rotations were off, or they were just playing really aggressive, trying to see if they can maintain a high score line so that Kieran and Stealth stopped scoring. But at no point did Kieran and Stealth stop scoring in this game.
Yeah, there's no reason to stop. I mean, at this point, you're still building that momentum and building that confidence. And if you can do it against a team like Beast Lords, then you know that you pretty much can do it against anybody else in this bracket. I mean, they've had an incredible run through this bracket to get to this point. And at this point now, it should just be an expectation that not only do they make semifinals, they make grand finals, probably should expect to walk away with first place. But Top Cougars also kind of had that same perspective, where they went into last week's qualifier. They're like, we theoretically should be favored to win this one because they've won the last 2 championships. They won 6 weeks in a row. This is a team sitting on top. So you don't want to be, unfortunately, caught snoozing where, okay, our hardest opponent is behind us, the Beast Lords being that person. Gambling Problems can't put it in cruise control. They still have to make sure they take care of business, still check the boxes.
Yeah, they do. And especially obviously, we're now in the thick of it. The top 4 teams now in the semifinals. Gambling Problems going to face GG Easy in their matchup. And then Discombobulated Banana versus Xerox is going to be our first semifinal matchup we're going to spectate. That's going to be the next one up and coming shortly. It is going to be some incredible series. And just looking at the overall views, we were able to see Xerox a little bit earlier, play really well against Vizine. And we were hoping that they were able to continue that momentum into the quarterfinals, in which they clearly have done, to get them into the semifinals now. So we know they're fast. We know they can play well. We have yet to see how Phantom and Spud Gun do for Discombobulated Banana. They have a lot of games played together, a lot of kind of back and forth wins losses, it seems, about 60% for both of them. So it is still a coin flip for sure in that game. The Gambling Problems versus GG Easy is going to be a matchup to watch. Miggy Boss and Album have to go against, now without a doubt, the best team in the tournament after beating a team like Freshness and Mektos. There is not much they can do. We'll see what they can do, though, in the semifinals. We are going to go to a quick break. Do not go anywhere. Semifinals coming right after this. We'll be right back. Everyone, back to the IATL Rocket League qualifier number 2. Of course, my name Troy Pibcast Welling. Next to me, Trevor Confused Caribou McNeil, and we are getting ready for the semifinals, leading into the grand finals today. No breaks from here, only some Rocket League action at this point on. So 2 great semifinals, and then the grand finals to see where everyone matches up. And of course, like we've talked about, the 2 top teams will be invited to the IATL finals at the end of this month. So it's still something to play for. Of course, there's money on the line, $125 for first and $50 for second, but you still have the finals to play for. And these are the top 4 teams now that we're getting into the mix of everything.
Top 3 teams get to make it out of
Top
today.
3 teams. Right,
yeah,
math.
You didn't do your math because
yeah, but if you
I picked
it's
up
8 teams. If you do the top 3 teams of each qualifier, it's 9.
Yeah, you do 3, 3, and then 2.
Why is it?
We've done this for 3 and we've done this for like 4 months. Where have you been? Come on,
I'm not good at math.
get it together. Oh,
so the first 2 qualifiers count more than the third one.
Technically speaking, yeah, because third place gets a prize, but they don't get a money prize. That's the difference maker. You don't want to get third because it's just like a consolation pat on the back. Like, hey, you showed up. We'll let you come back again in a few weeks' time. But you'd rather have that first, second place prize where you get to walk away with some of that $175 prize pool. But coming up here in our semifinals, you said there's no breaks on this train anymore. Discombobulated Banana and Xerox. We've seen Xerox play. For some reason, I recognize the Discombobulated Banana name. They weren't here in last week's qualifier. Check the bracket on that. So it had to be a previous engagement with them, probably in last month's qualifier. But again, another familiar name that we've seen around. Love seeing those names come back and try their hand. And when it comes down to this, where now you're in top 4, and those 3 teams that we talked about were this is the 3 teams that we should watch, theoretically should tally a 1, 2, 3 in the qualification for the grand finals of this month, all in the top half of the bracket. So only one of them actually gets to play for one of those 3 slots.
And I think, just throwing this out there, I think the Discombobulated Banana team name is auto-generated by CMG. I'm just going to assume, because we've seen this is a different team. I don't know, because I'm pretty sure this is a different team than the Discombobulated Banana team beforehand. So I'm pretty confident that it's a different team completely. But, I could be wrong. But nonetheless, of course, this is Discombobulated Banana versus Xerox here for our first semifinals. Who is going to take it? We've seen Xerox before already, so my initial response is to go with Xerox just because we saw them dominate and force a rage quit earlier on in this tournament. And Discombobulated Banana has a very wishy-washy win rate as far as I'd say just in general. Overall, Phantom and Spud Gun are, just slightly above 50% overall win rate. So just looking at how everything has panned out, I'd say Mizuki and his teammate Ghost there for Xerox could win this series, and they'll face a very difficult opponent in Gambling Problems versus GG Easy on the other side, whoever does win this one. But I am going to predict, I think it's going to be a 2-0 for Xerox. I think that's going to be my solidified ending there.
I believe that I'd probably be on the same side of that coin. I think that it's Xerox, just what we saw out of them. They had glimpses of really solid play. We saw first place, who was the team that Discombobulated Banana just played to qualify here for the semifinals. I think first place also showed glimpses of, just that higher level, the higher echelon of Rocket League play, where you get the aerial, you get the more advanced mechanics of it. And if Discombobulated Banana beat them, then I would assume that they also have some caliber that would match. But, from what Xerox has, I think whoever's going to be able to implement those higher echelon mechanics of this play, I think is going to be the one that moves on. And I would agree with you. I think Xerox is the one that's going to take it.
Yeah, and they are back and forth, NA first and then EU second as far as the server split goes. But it looks like we are getting ready to go into game number 1. So let's go ahead and do so to see how this pans out. Of course, not many teams are familiar with playing on 120 plus ping sometimes. So switching servers can be a really drastic change as far as the way you react in Rocket League. I mean, I've played with packet loss and high ping constantly in Rocket League, and let me tell you, it is not fun to do. It makes the game very difficult, even more difficult than it already is. So we'll see if the likes of DB can win up against Xerox here. We already said Xerox has a chance to take this one overall, and we'll see if that is going to be the case here, as Mizuki has a chance as Elite Ghost finds a demo. Pretty much wide open net, but can't get that one to actually have any power behind it, so that is going to be a missed opportunity. But about a minute in so far, Xerox finally on defense here. Get an easy save and now look to try and make a counterattack. We've already said Xerox probably has the opportunity to take this series overall, but it's got to start early. You got to see that momentum carry over.
Yeah, and being able to set it up here in this one, especially, knowing what's on the horizon of what your grand finals matchup is going to be. Like, this is a very important matchup, not only to punch your ticket to the grand finals, but also because you just, as I said, want to walk away with some of that cash prizing. You don't want that consolation third place. Yeah, you can come play in a couple of weeks' time, I guess, with the rest of us, but you'd rather have that something that you can walk away with and feeling confident that not only did you beat a lot of these teams and go into a competition with the level of talent in this one, but you walked away with the top 2 placement. And that's, in and of itself, is a huge statement that you're making, but you all have to start right here in the semifinals just to make sure you get to that point.
But yeah, and with 2 minutes ticking down now, neither team finding really any opportunistic points so far in this game. I'm wondering when that scoring will kind of spark alive. See which teams will be able to actually get this one to go through. Phantom's going to bring this one up with a nice aerial dribble. Maybe drops it down to his teammate, but onto the bar or onto the post and away. Now leads it onto a counterattack here, but Miniature is going to get there in time to bring this one back up for DB. Discombobulated banana, of course, shortened. We're going to call him DB for now. It's much easier, but the scoring is going to start here for Xerox as Elite Ghost finds a goal with a pass from Mizuki. Maybe a pass initially. Actually, no, from the corner, Elite Ghost is able to find that one. Mizuki with a nice challenge. He's going to leave that one for his teammate, and that's going to be the first goal here for Xerox in game number 1 of the semifinals.
Yeah, just a good deflection and then being able to step up and get a shot on from that point where the defense is not quite ready for that challenge to be made and for the shot to come through. So being able to get +1. Mizuki tried to get back. Good save from Miniature Man, though, to be able to make sure they don't get an answer and hold on to this with the halfway point, 1-0. It's very easy to have a simple mistake, a simple slip up, and give a goal back. Just got to make sure you dot your T's, cross your I's, and take care of business here to close out this game.
Yes, exactly. Just how the tables are turning, the turntables. You got to dot your T's and cross your I's. I am. I'm understanding now. We've been casted for a few years at this point, which is also crazy enough. Oh, no.
Oh.
That is the most unfortunate own goal I've ever seen. Miniature just sitting on the backboard trying to get this one away from being a goal. It would have, it hits crossbar and drops right back down. Miniature is going to be in the utmost worst position possible and just taps someone back in for Xerox to give them that 2-goal lead in this series, which they desperately needed. So that is a huge goal in this game nonetheless, it being an own goal or not. That having that 2-goal lead in general is a very, very important thing. So the fact that it comes off an own goal is a little bit demoralizing, but DB has to find a way to just get past that one and try and find an opening shot, opening goal here, taking them back in this one.
Yeah, we've seen teams come back. I mean, we just watched a great series, watching come back from a 2-0, but now with the 3-0 deficit, 90 seconds to play, Ghost tagging on another one after that midfield win of possession. This is a really strong settling for Xerox to be able to hold on to this lead, to carry this into the next game, and what a statement to be able to get them into a 3-goal lead here in game 1.
It's, of course, like I said, game one of the semifinals, one of our two semifinals, our very first one to come through. This is game one, Xerox versus Discombobulated Banana, and welcoming everyone in from the Xbox channel. Appreciate everyone tuning in live from over there. We are in to the thick of it in our semifinals here as we get closer to the grand finals. This is, of course, qualifier number 2 of the 3 qualifiers. So if you did want to participate in this tournament as well, you can. Fourth goal comes in for Xerox here as they just look to take this game by storm after having quite a boring, I'd say, first half for the most part. But now we see if Xerox can continue this momentum, see if they can continue this series lead, and try and see if they can get themselves to the grand finals, be the first team to guarantee themselves a chance at the IATL finals at the end of August.
And starting out very strong here in this game to be able to try to punch their ticket for that because of the sense of 4 goals, even with the second one just being a little bit of a tilt of an own goal, that really just starts to snowball and put them in this position and get a save here to make sure there's nothing to go back the other way to try to set something up for Phantom. But, holding on to this and getting a shutout potential and putting up 4 goals in this is just such a boost of confidence to go into game 2 in a best of 3, make it 5 now. This is, everything that Xerox could have ever asked for in their opening game of the semifinals.
Yeah, it is. And obviously it wasn't really panning out to be like this for a while. So the fact that it changed so drastically in about a minute of time is where really that huge change of pace came through. So Xerox much happier with how the second half of this game has gone through, obviously, but they have to be able to transition that into game 2, have to start it off that quickly in that same time being. And like we've said, it is a NA first, EU second host, so the servers are going to switch back and forth. I don't know if Xerox is favored on this side or if they are on the opposite side, but if they're on their home servers, this is, of course, a great game nonetheless. But if they're on the away servers, it's even more important that they're able to have a lead like this. And Mizuki trying to find a nice little musty flick there at the end to get a 6th goal to come through. But game number 1 going to go in the hands for Xerox here in our first semifinals. Like we've said, so much action has gone into today. This is the first semifinal. After this, one more semifinal, and then we hit the grand finals for this qualifier. And of course, they're playing for money up top, $125 for first, $50 for second, and then whoever qualifies top 3 gets a chance to play in the IATL finals the end of August, in which their prize pool is much larger than the weekly tournament. So this is what people are going for. Let's go and take a look at the replays of that initial game. It's going to be a lot of Xerox, of course, winning that game 5-0.
Yeah. And just a little bit of the tilt that really kicked in. You get the first one off of a challenge in the corner, but this one is, I think, the one that broke the camel's back. A decent shot attempt, but unfortunate the deflection just put it right across the line as an own goal. And then after that, it's just enough for Xerox to be able to continue to pour it on, continue to build the momentum, keep the pressure up on the offensive front. And it's just scrambling from the other side. DB just could not find any answer, couldn't find an offensive possession. They're like just looking for anything to find something, to get a point on the board. Do literally anything you possibly can to find one goal. That's all you need. It starts with 1, and they just couldn't even do that. And that is a huge slight for the mental tilts going into game number 2, because you now look at it like, well, we couldn't even score in game 1. How are we going to do that in game 2? Sure, the server switch, maybe that's the difference maker between them, but we just got shut out 5-0. This is, we don't stand a chance. It's doomed. It's over.
Yeah, it's a rough switch up. Obviously, like we said, if the case is that they were on their home servers, they won that much, it's a good standing for them, and maybe they have a much more even game in the second game. But that being said, it was a very, it was a 0-0 game for most of that game. 3.5 minutes of time goes through, nothing really happened, and suddenly Xerox was able to make a huge transition onto offense and start to score a lot. So if they can continue that momentum, whether it's on ping difference or not, if they can continue to keep making plays like that, they should be able to take game 2 under their belt as well. It shouldn't be very difficult for them to try and continue that moving forward. So that's something that we're going to be expecting going into game 2. But like we said, it's all up to the server difference. See if either team has experience on that, because that is a huge thing. A lot of teams we've already talked about don't have experience on playing on EU servers if you're an NA team. Same can be reversed, vice versa. So it is going to be that situation where is game 2 going to go the same way, or can we see something a little bit more early on happen for either side? Game 2 looks to be starting here shortly, though, as we get into our second game of the first semifinals. Discombobulated Banana versus Xerox. Xerox, of course, the orange team with the 1-goal lead, look to try and take the semifinals out in their hands here. Good start for them, but a nice save for Miniature to start this game off.
Can I also point out, and this hurts me more than it hurts you, Miniature Man's got an 06 at the end of his name. I think that's because that's what year he was born.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I can't believe people are born. I mean, I'm 1998. I'm really struggling to get much farther than that, right? But to 2006, man, and you're 15, like that's wild. That's absolutely wild.
Not only that, but you're this good at Rocket League. Like, I could never. When I was 15, I was terrible at, I mean, not that anything's changed over the years. I'm still terrible at video games, but imagine if I was 15 and good at anything. Like,
yeah, anything's the point there.
It hurts.
Yeah. Unfortunate, buddy. As we see if DB can find a way back in this series. So far, it's just been a lot of back and forth possession loss for both teams. We haven't talked about it enough, but possession is a huge part of this game as well. Being able to just not constantly just bomb the ball downfield whenever you have a chance to makes it a lot easier for your team to be able to create plays, and obviously stops the enemy team from being able to create as much, because the more you just send it downfield, the easier it is for them to recollect themselves, get boost, and then try and get a shot onto net. We see right there, nice backboard clearance for Miniature Man as Mizuki's able to find a shot, but no goal just yet. Demo to come through, but Miniature Man there once again being the rock at the back of the net here for this team so far. Through a minute and a half. Once again, not really a whole lot going on between these two teams. We've seen a couple decent shots, a couple great saves, but no goals to start the mix-off just yet. Nice flick coming out from Phantom, though, to try and get this one back into favor. Deflection goes a little bit wide. Phantom's there for the save once again. Putting on this much pressure, though, could eventually make DB make a mistake here.
Yeah, just a couple love taps, and finally they do get something to slide, as they will get a put back here. Slide it under the defense as Miniature Man tried to go high and instead just went low. Phantom couldn't get a nose on to keep that one out of the corner of the goal, so they get their go ahead 2 minutes into the game. Xerox already on series points here in this best of 3, and starting with 1 is just, again, regardless of which side of the ball you're on, you gotta start with 1 goal and just start to pour it on from there. And DB now, I think at this point, have to kind of take note of that and realize that we're now down 6 straight goals we haven't scored in almost 7.5 minutes of Rocket League play. What is the difference? How do we break this where there's just zeros across the board?
Yeah, and I mean, they couldn't really find out either. I mean, there was a lot of the first game, a lot of second game same through, and then Xerox just starts to bleed out their opponents a little bit. This has now been the second case, 2 games in a row now. We see Mizuki just doing them absolutely dirty right there, faking both of them out. That's a good feeling to get that on the highlight reel real quick, to get 2 fakes like that and just slot it in. Xerox getting their 2-goal lead as well on top of that. So this just means Xerox has a good chance to take the series now, which we both predicted would be the case after seeing them early. Looked like a very good team, very fast-paced, and some good communication and cooperation with each other, like you can see right there. Yeah. Not exactly what that was probably panned out to be originally, but they were able to recover it quite nicely. Mizuki over to the corner. This is probably meant to be a shot from Ghost, but even so, getting that back to the middle of the opportunity to get that cross in and get that one over to Mizuki gives them that 3rd goal and now pushes them even farther towards the grand finals that they were looking for.
Yeah, and it started, I mean, that first goal, and then they really start to build that momentum from there. I mean, as soon as you get the first one, it's the most difficult one to score because you have that extra added pressure of it being this close. They're finally going to get one back here. Phantom going to take this coast to coast after a little bit of an overcommit from Xerox on the offensive front, and realizing it's just an open field in front. Phantom will get a single touch on, get a goal back. So now only down to 2, and that's the first goal of this series. So DB certainly has something to go for it. Xerox, their confidence might be a little too much right now, getting a little overzealous. And if that's the case, then DB might be able to capitalize on it. If not, maybe they learn their lesson, and Xerox going to close it out here and now. Yeah,
and with, I mean, even slightly smaller lead, that only 2-goal difference could mean a comeback could be mounted from DB, but they have been on defense most of this game now, and exactly the same way the first game started, to where it was zeros for across the board for 3.5 minutes, and then suddenly a minute goes through and there's just nonstop goal scoring from Xerox, and so they just got to stop the bleeding. If DB can do that in the future of tournaments here, if they can stop that bleeding going forward, they would look much better in the ways their game's planned out so far in this one. Also, I think luckily enough, neither one of these teams managing to find the Mektos Freshness duo or Gambling Problems duo there in Kieran and Stealth. I think both of them avoiding the harder side of the bracket by far, but this has still been a tough run of show here for these teams. And now we have to see if DB, who struggled to score in this one as Elite Ghost hits the bar there, the post, they've just been on defense mostly. I'd say both of the entire second halves of the last two games, they have been stuck on defense.
Yeah, it just has not boded well for their team at all. I mean, they've just not been able to get out of this zone, and if for whatever time they can, it just does not last exactly like that. It just goes the other way. Phantom with the deflection is not high enough, and it just ends up adding a little momentum towards the goal. So put them up 3 goals now with the 4-1 score line, and that's going to be about all she wrote here for Zero, and DBs are going to be able to move on into the grand finals now. I had to think about that for a second. I thought we're still in quarters looking to go to semis, but no, Zero have now punched their ticket to the finals here for today's qualifier, and it is all smiles on that side. But unfortunately, on the other side, you got to look at this matchup that will be coming up here, because it is not going to be any easier.
Yeah, one of the teams might be named GG Easy, but is not going to be GG Easy by any standpoint. As we see the 5th goal come through from Mitsuki, simple enough. Off the counterattack, gets a pinch off the clearance as well. That is going to mean Xerox advances themselves to the grand finals after it's all said and done. So they are guaranteed a spot in the IATL finals and guaranteed a chance to get some money here going forward, in which you see just some freestyling going on in the background. But that is going to be the end of the series. Both of us predicted that. Xerox getting second place there, and I think being a little bit kind as well as cheering them on for third place too. Hopefully to see them in the ITL finals as well. But Xerox is that first team to make it to the grand finals. And now we go into our second grand finals here, starting up shortly. Gambling Problems versus GG Easy. Gambling Problems looked phenomenal in their series against Mektos and Freshness, and it's going to be tough for any of these teams. Even after watching Xerox play that series, it's going to be tough to see if anyone can match the pace that Kieran and Stealth were able to emit in that best of 3 in this just the quarterfinals to get here to the semis.
Yeah, and I don't think that they're going to slow down at all. I think after their matchup, they have been staying warm and just kind of recognizing that they got a nice little 20, 30-minute break there in between. And now they're just going to get right back into this one. And, you know, playing against a team like GG Easy, there's a lot of toxicity on the line here. And, yeah, we love for the sake of the game, just because even if you get absolutely stomped, you'd always chat GG Easy. It's just proper etiquette of online gaming. It's everybody has to do it. So even if GG Easy loses 14-0, you have to type GG Easy in chat. But what Gambling Problems could do against him, if they can just keep up what they did against I've already forgotten what they're, the Beast Lords of the international variety, of course. If they're able to maintain what they did against a team that good, then it's going to be a very tough task for GG Easy to be able to match up against that. But then again, there's always that team that you just never actually know what they're capable of. And GG Easy might be the team that comes in, and before we've struck midnight on the clock, Cinderella story still going on.
Yeah, I mean, they've had, I'm trying to look at their match history so far in this one, but I mean, to go into this case in point, they are already up pretty good. And obviously in the semifinals for a reason. They're one of the top 4 teams that have proved themselves, at least through the bracket side.
Yeah.
We at this point can't say that every team in the top 4 is the top 4 in the tournament, because I mean, there's Mektos and Freshness. They just faced probably one of the best teams as well in that same time. So these are the teams that have made it to the semifinals, but we'll see if they can solidify themselves as the top 4 in general to see what the semifinals is going to go out as. I believe could it be an all EU matchup? And I think it is. So much easier for both teams,
Yep.
which makes it a lot easier for the grand finals, I believe, too, because I think Xerox is also EU, if I'm not mistaken. I'm not
I think so.
100% sure on that one, but would make it easier for everybody as far as just all EU tournament at the end of the final, which is usually has been the case for the most part, surprisingly, through these few months actually of Rocket League. Has been a
Yeah.
lot of EU teams showing up.
One of the things that I can't remember who I was casting with. It might have been Bass, and that's who I'd put my money on if I did. But one of the comments that I had made is as reassuring as it is to see these EU teams come back to this community open. It's awesome to see these recurring faces and just watching how good they can do playing in NA events. But NA teams, come on. Like, come on. We can't just let EU come over here and just show us up like that. And then they keep doing it. Like every single finals is like, yeah, well, quarters EU-NA, semis EU-EU-EU-NA, and then finals EU-EU. It's like, well,
Yeah.
why? What's wrong with North America Rocket League that we just can't beat European teams regardless of ping?
It's
I don't
just
get it.
I think this just North America in general. I mean, we're not we are very prideful of our teams, but not a lot of the time are they very good is the issue. That's the problem. But I say at least Rocket League as far as it's the one with the CLG in the background is one to talk. But game number 1 is starting here for the second semifinal. Of course, Gambling Problems versus GG Easy. All EU, all going to be a lot of great fun. Gambling Problems look fantastic in their quarterfinals against Mectos and Freshness, who are 2 professional players for Ghost Gaming. So if you want a skill level of where this game will be at, these 2 on Gambling Problems beat 2 professional players that play together constantly. So that kind of gives you a statement and a staple in this series of how good these teams have to play in order to beat each other.
Oh, it was still just starting out like that. I mean, 15 seconds in, they get their first goal. One of those points that we brought up as well is, sometimes the road to where you're at is just a very difficult and rocky road, not the ice cream, to get to this point. And now all of a sudden, you might be able to kind of just reel it in a little bit because this matchup is potentially not as difficult as the one that you just had, but Alba is going to try and make sure this game stays close after just a quick little pinch to the side, play it off the wall, and get an open shot on net where there's no defenders back. And that is another thing you have to think about in the Gambling Problems is that maybe they've thought their hardest opponents are already behind them, so they are just kicked back, feet up, reclined, and playing this one casual when they might need to lean forward and get that forehead sweat going again.
I experienced a lot of forehead sweat. Me and Peyton Manning, both big fans of foreheads, but Stealth is going to try and bring this one off the wall here and try and see what he can do with it, but not a whole lot. To continue off of that awkward air dribble means that he has to stop his run. And Kiernan, also with an awkward miss, just kind of going back and forth. Kiernan with a nice kind of carry back around towards net, but doesn't end up amounting to anything. And now Stealth and Kiernan get a little bit caught on rotation, so now's a chance on goal, but Kiernan's going to get there in time, even getting that corner boost on top of it. So Kiernan is going to keep on moving. Demo to come through for Stealth, but just demoralizing, demolishing Miggy Boss is going to go over both of them. After his own teammate gets demolished, he says, you know what, I'm going to take it from here. Takes him 2 versus 1 and just slides it right past Stealth, who thought he was clear to go as far as no one challenging him. And that's the importance of early challenges. And obviously when your teammate gets demoed, you have to stall a little bit for them to respawn, try and get boost. So that challenge alone was already great, but to put it on target was even better. And now puts GG Easy in the lead.
Yeah, getting that go-ahead here and just over a minute into this game is a lot of confidence that you can build up from the GG Easy side just because of you've seen what this team that you're playing can do and you know what you think that you can do. Like, this is just going to be a really great matchup between 2 incredible teams once more. And, Gambling Problems, apparently, just the way that the bracket has randomized the seeding, are not going to have an easy matchup at any point from start to finish this whole qualifiers. Alba's going to put a 3rd one on the board. Now Gambling Problems are having different kind of problem where they find themselves down 2 goals.
Yeah, and suddenly our predictions are entirely wrong. So we'll see what is going to be the case.
That's what people don't know.
Yeah. Right. Right, right. We'll just we'll see how this plays out. See if the overtime curse in the semifinals will continue. From what we've seen from Gambling Problems so far, they're doing it again, bringing it back to 2-3. If they can, they're very good at 2-goal comebacks. We know that for a fact. They're also very good in overtime. So we'll see if that is going to be what's rocking at the end of this game. But plenty of time still, and a much different pace of play that I thought would happen originally is now 3-2. Is going to be the scoreline with 3 minutes still left on the clock.
Yeah, because we saw in the opening games between Gambling Problems and Beast Lords, it was just a lot of defense played, and here we are, 6 goals scored in 2 minutes and 9 seconds when those were 3-2 score lines in regulation plus overtime. So watching all of a sudden defense be completely thrown away from the Gambling Problem side is very peculiar, because you know that both of these players are really good at defense, but they just feel like they don't have to, and now we're just going to go to an offensive shootout.
Yeah, which is not anything I would have expected out of a semifinals matchup. We see a double demo come through, though, but can't create anything out of it. Kieran just spawns in the perfect spot to try and stop that one originally, and he gets that second touch on the recovery. So nicely done from them. Stealth with an awkward touch here, but no one on the orange side even close to that ball, so Stealth has plenty of time to work with. That's also something extremely important to communicate to your teammates as well, is telling them how much time they have if anyone's challenging them. That's a lot of information that gives them a lot of time to create something and get closer towards creating a goal. So that is something really important communication wise. But as of right now, Kieran going to try and coast on this one down, as Alba Boss going to be back by himself. Stealth going to carry this one a little bit, has a decent kind of dribble here still, but car was going a little bit wonky at the end, so couldn't continue with that air dribble. Now about a minute knocked off the clock. We've taken a small break from all the scoring that has happened. And Stealth is going to hit this one backwards. I think he's just going to try and redirect this one off the wall. Get into a much better position. Nice pinch. Goes into the corner, but cleared out once again. And now GG Easy back on defense once again. That is just slotted perfectly by Kieran into the top left. He gets that one off the initial clearance. And, I mean, that is beautiful placement.
That is such a tough shot to hit, too. I mean, the defense is there. Like, they're in position. There's nothing wrong with that. Both of them are theoretically where they need to be able to stop anything. But Kieran just placed that so well and away from the defenders that there's no chance at all that they can get up in time for this. But that is the unfortunate immediate turnaround going back the other way, where Alba's going to be able to get this back after Kieran and Stealth, a little bit of a miscue in the corner, just bumping into each other, leave it wide open, and all of a sudden we're equalized back.
Minute and 28 seconds left on the clock now, as Gambling Problems have not really had any time to enjoy a lead in this game so far. Connection here, though. And this is what marks them different from other teams in the semifinals, is that they can connect for plays like that when they need to. Kieran with a wonderful pass, and Stealth already pre-jumping for that one. Gets him that 5th goal, gets them that go-ahead lead once again. Hopefully they can enjoy this one for a bit longer than they've had in time being, as that is an incredible goal. Kieran has another chance here. Very quick shot, but Miggy Boss back in the goal to be able to stop that one. But Gambling Problems, with what I was expecting this whole time, and one of those amazing goals, finally is able to score one of them. And I think this is where they start to open up a little bit. Obviously, you take that first game, have to warm up, have to get used to the other team, how they play. Now you can maybe see if Gambling Problems, Stealth and Kieran. Stealth with a really bad touch, though. That is a huge mistake. You can't let happen, especially in the semifinals. Now that's going to be the tie once again, as Stealth just gets an awkward hit, and Megaboss just there to capitalize on it.
Stealth in good position just to intercept that pass, but yeah, a really awkward hit that just puts some backspin on it, and immediately recognize the mistake, and there's nothing to be done or said about that. Just unfortunate that it's now an open goal with 2 players that are going to get a shot on, but they're going to try to take it the other way and get a counterattack. With 40 seconds to go, they got to be able to find one back. We know that they can produce very quickly. It's just a matter of, can they do it in regulation, or are we going to find another overtime series on our hands? Because we've seen Gambling Problems in overtime, and we know that it can go 7 seconds or it can go 4.5 minutes, but either way, they do pretty well. I think that's just something you'd rather avoid. You don't want to be in a sudden death goal situation.
Yeah, with 15 seconds left, can GG Easy take the first game, which would be a miracle, I would think, for them to go against the kind of caliber team we saw in the quarterfinals against international beast lords. To see that play out differently right now would be something crazy. We'll see if that's going to be the case. 1 second left. Oh, what a mistake.
Oh,
what an absolute mistake coming out from a player on GG Easy's. Kieran is going to get credit for this goal. But Miggy just owned goals into the back of the net with zeros on the clock.
Chat, GG Easy.
And that's,
you got to do it.
That is not the way to finish game one when you are expecting to go into overtime. That is a rough way to finish that in semifinals. Game one now being handed over to gambling problems, in which now with that kind of a lead, with that demoralizing finish to that game one, gambling problems might have a good slot to finish off this series quite quickly. But let's take a look at the replays. Of course, powered by Microsoft ATL of that game. A lot of action, a lot of not action for a while, but a lot of action at the end of that game. And then, 11 goal game to finish off is not something either of us were expecting.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the way that we saw gambling problems play in their initial series in the quarterfinals, it was such a slow going, very good defensive matchup, but then it just immediately kicked off with 5 goals in the first 2 minutes of this game, and it just didn't slow down really until we hit that lull where there's a 60 to 90-second period of not a whole lot of anything, and then finally are able to get a couple of more, starting with that one that Kieran put in perfectly in the corner away from the defense. And then it was just a 1-for-1 back and forth. But the biggest story of what we saw was the heartbreaker that was the eventual go ahead with zeros on the clock. That's an own goal, because there's just nothing. There's no reason whatsoever that you should be able to be in that spot to do something like that. Granted, you have to get a touch on. If you're in that position, you have to get a touch on the ball, because if you don't, they're just going to play it off the bounce, play it off the backboard, get the shot on, and that ball's going in the back of the net anyways. But the touch you have to get is a deflection off to the side or a spike straight to the ground, and just not where you get the double touch and dunk it into your own net. That's just worst case scenario. And as you said, putting gambling on the now 1-0 series point in a best of 3, I think is perfect position. They're right where they need to be, right where they want to be, with all kinds of momentum going into game 2.
Yeah, I think realistically, this is the way they wanted that to go. Obviously, it wasn't looking like that for most of the game. It was definitely starting to favor GG Easy a little bit as far as how the game was panning out. Obviously, like we said, 11 goals in total. Neither team really had a lead most of the game. It kind of just went wishy-washy back and forth constantly. So that was kind of maybe showcasing how this is going to go in general. It might just be kind of one of those games that just gets set loose right at the beginning, and there's going to be a lot of goal scoring. It's going to be a very interesting finish to see how this pans out. But like we've been saying, gambling problems with that goal or with that series lead now, that's super important for them, because now we think they're the better team so far from how they've played, especially considering the teams they beat, obviously, to get up to this point. So for them to be on a lead that they probably weren't guaranteed, and then to get just kind of dabbled in at the end of that game one is really nice for their momentum.
And I'm curious now if they're going to continue with this play style, if they're going to go completely away from the defensive play and just try to go full aggro, just go full offense and try to outscore their opponents, and regardless of how many points that the other team puts up, or if they are going to revert back to what we saw in their quarterfinal series, where it is that lockdown defense, give up a couple of goals, and that's about it, where you have just 4.5 minutes of absolutely nothing going for the offense of the opposing team. But I feel like just after what happened in game 1, we're probably going to pick up right where we left off, and it's going to be a lot more offensive shootouts between these two teams, and wouldn't be surprised at all to see another 10 or 11 goal game.
Yeah, I would assume it'd be a little bit smaller, but with how both teams kind of just left their nets, they were just ready to keep on scoring. It didn't seem like either team was committed to playing a whole lot of defense in that same setting. So we'll see if that's going to be the case once again. And that is going to be the kind of mark here in this game as we hopefully get this game underway soon. I don't know what their problem is, considering they're all on EU. They don't have to change servers or anything. Another bathroom break could be the case, but this is, of course, the semifinals, second semifinals. The winner of this advances to the grand finals to face Xerox, who has looked very good through their run so far throughout this tournament. They've faced some good teams to get here, and it had a good 2-0 finish in the semifinals. And so now they're just sitting here waiting for more than likely gaming problems at this point with that series lead to try and win that grand finals take the $125. And of course, both teams in that top grand finals are guaranteed a spot in the IATL finals in a couple of weeks. So we'll see how that pans out, of course, and we'll see if this game starts shortly as we see what might happen. But going into the grand finals, Xerox is kind of that team that is. I'm now intrigued to see how Xerox will do in the grand finals because they've looked great, but I don't know if they're playing their best. I guess you could say like they've looked really good, but if they face one of these teams on the other side of the semifinals, I don't know how it'll look in the grand finals.
Yeah, I'm very excited to see how high their ceiling does go. And when you put them up against a team, obviously between either one of these, GG Easy or Gambling Problems, because they've both now shown their value here in this, where either one of them is worthy of advancing into the grand finals today. But how does Xerox match up against that? Because I think you and I both are in agreement that the top half of the bracket was significantly more difficult than the bottom half. So is Xerox still going to be able to keep up with the pacing of the top half champion, or are they just going to flounder in the face of a team that has been through hell and high water to get there?
Yeah, and we will go to a quick break shortly as we get this other semifinal matchup ready and done and dusted. We're leading into the grand finals, of course. Still a lot of great Rocket League action to come. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Welcome back, everyone. ATL Rock League Qualifier number 2. Of course, my name Troy Pibb, cast dwelling next to me, Trevor Cavuse, Caribou McNeil. We are back and ready, I believe, to transition from the semifinals to the grand finals. If not, get the rest of the semifinal underway. Get you all caught up on that. But it looks like Gambling Problems once again had a great game, and no surprise, we're able to win that series, I believe. But of course, they had a tough matchup to get here in this general. I mean, we were talking about we had the top 10 play segment at the beginning of the show last week as well,
Yeah.
and next week is probably going to be a lot of that game, a lot of that series. Those 3 games, even though they had 4 goals, in each game, the first 2 games, and it kind of transitioned to the third game. There's some incredible plays in that series, which we were already talking about was probably the grand final game to go through in the quarterfinals. So luckily enough, they were able to find the win against a very amazing team in the International Beast Lords. Of course, two professional players for Ghost Gaming, and then ended
Yeah.
up beating them out. So deservingly so, Gaming Problems seem to be trying to move themselves into the grand finals here today. And Xerox is awaiting probably their toughest matchup yet.
Yeah, and watching to see what Xerox can do is going to be a very interesting matchup because of just how we've seen them play in the lower half of the bracket. And they've looked good in their own rights, but we know that what we've gone through in the top half of the bracket has been immaculately, arguably more difficult on the other side. So if Gambling Problems can maintain the success that they've had, even GG Easy put up a hell of a fight in game one, a 6-5 scoreline where the
Yep.
deciding factor was an own goal with zeros on the board. Like that's an incredible game just by itself. And then Gambling Problem goes on to take that momentum to game two, win that series 2-0. But yeah, that quarterfinals matchup between them and Beast Lords, that's a grand finals caliber matchup here now. So both of these teams that have made the grand finals, Xerox and Gambling Problems, are qualified for the grand finals in 2 weeks' time at the end of the month. But there's also a third place team that's going to be playing behind the scenes that we'll be able to figure out as well, because there is no overlap like we've had in past events where all of a sudden there's teams that have already qualified. Now you got to figure out, okay, fourth, fifth,
Yeah.
down the ladder until we find the next team up. So having 3 brand new teams all added into the mix here for the grand finals in 2 weeks is a breath of fresh air. It's very refreshing, and I'm excited to see, if they can maintain what they have here this week, carry to next week, get a little more pocket change in qualifier number 3, or if they're just going to let it ride until the grand finals at the end of the month.
Yeah, and of course, we're in the grand finals, but a lot can be said about this qualifier in general. We're missing a lot of really good teams that we've seen week after week, month after month, even at this point. I mean, we lost the 2 grand finalists last week. Both did not come to this qualifier this week. So obviously, Top Cougars and Ember Gates, I believe, with Luis and his teammate Jalading. So we didn't have those 2 teams. We didn't have Bella and Vunji, which we haven't seen in a bit. So I mean, there's a lot of really good teams that have not or did not come today. So it means this is a huge week for the other teams that might not have been able to beat some of those guys in the qualifiers to have a chance to get themselves to the finals this week.
Yeah, and then watching to see who's going to be able to step up and really take advantage of that, right? And these all the teams I think recognize that situation that they're in. And okay, we have this chance now where those teams aren't here, where these players aren't there. Granted, yeah, you got Toxic here, you got Kieran here,
Right.
Jolly and as you said, Luis not here, Smokes isn't here, Sneaky's not here, Galletti with Bungie and Vela not here. So like there's
Yep.
a lot of these individual players that aren't, and then there's a lot of the individuals that are because they just have that versatility that they can kind of really play with anybody. But the biggest storyline that we had today that we pitched up was the fact that Mektos had come back with freshness. And then they had this
Yeah.
incredible shootout in the quarterfinals where unfortunately they fell early, but just such insane roster of teams and players that came into this qualifier. And just the way that the top half alone went. They have to re-sign up for qualifier number 3 because they won't be able to qualify out of today for the grand
Right.
finals. So it's going to make, if those teams that aren't here today and those teams in the top half of the bracket that didn't make it to the semifinals this week, all of that in a pool for next week is going to make qualifier number 3 very interesting.
Yeah, if all that does happen, if those teams re-sign up for next week's qualifier, it'll probably be the hardest qualifier of the month in consideration how everything is paying out. Because of
Yeah.
course, if those teams didn't qualify in the first week and then they don't show up in the second week, there's a huge difference. But obviously, both Top Cougars and Geraldine's team were able to make it the grand finals, so they at least guaranteed themselves to the finals. But there are still some teams lurking, like you said. Toxic's team went into the hardest matchup now. Gambling problems faced face the Cougar Lovers in their round 3 matchup, then go to the quarterfinals and face without a doubt the best team in the tournament with Mektos and Freshness, and have made themselves like they deserve the number 1 spot, right? I think at this point it's fair to give it to them, considering the level of the quality of teams they faced in this qualifier to get here has showcased how deserving they are to be where they're at in the grand finals, and they have been pretty dominant, I'd say, so far through these series as well. Obviously, it was is an extremely close series in the first series that we watched with International Beast Lords, but then they just opened it up in Game 3 and just started scoring nonstop. So they really, once they can turn it on, can start firing, and that's where I fear for Xerox a little bit is, can they stop the bleed that no other team has been able to stop?
Yeah, and that's another point of, are they going to go into an offensive shootout once again? Or are they going to lock it down on defense and go in that approach? Because they know that we know that they can do both of them. And if they want to, they can put up 8 goals. If they want to, they can only give up 1 goal. And it might be in the first 15 seconds, but either way, that's going to be the only goal that you'll see for the entire duration. And they're just going to score
Right.
1 more than you. And that's all that you need to get the dub. Doesn't matter how much of a disparity there is between your score and theirs. A dub is a dub regardless. Now that they're in a best of 5, I think this is just right where they want to be. I think they've set themselves up perfectly going through the bracket today. I think that if it's not a 3-0, it's a 3-1 in favor of gambling problems.
Yeah, I think it easily could be. I mean, that's the issue, right? Is where we don't really know how Xerox matches up against Gambling Problems just yet. But realistically, from what we've seen so far out of Gambling Problems, it's like a confident 3-0 potentially from them if they are playing up to the same level that they've beaten some of the best teams in the tournament by far in this qualifier to get here. So I think this might be their easiest matchup out of the 4 matchups they've played today, and they're in the grand finals. So that if that tells you something about their road, it's been a very difficult road to get here. So that's where they have to kind of figure out their pace of play and their style. See if Xerox can match that nonetheless. And of course, we're getting this started here shortly, as this will be a best of 5, I believe, for the grand finals,
Yes.
instead of the best of 3s that we've seen throughout the rest of the tournament. So they do have a bit more of a chance to kind of drop a game or warm up a little bit as far as the first
Right.
couple of games go.
Yeah, you have a little bit of that leeway where if you want to drop a game 1, you can just get a feel for the opponent. But
Right.
you kind of probably not expected to see what they can do. I mean, Kieran, they've done very well through this point where they don't have to worry about their results out of this. I think the biggest question
Yeah.
is, how high does the ceiling go of their opponents? And starting out
Real
3
high.
seconds in with getting the first goal, that is, again, Gambling Problems just setting themselves up for success. And this is, if this is the pace that we're setting for this series, it might be a quick, confident 3-0.
Yeah, it just might be. I mean, this is oh boy. This is kind of what we were expecting, but hopefully not expecting at the same time. Like, obviously, I love a really competitive grand finals, but 2 goals, 1 off kickoff right away, 1 basically off kickoff 3 seconds ago. It's not looking too hot so far as the start goes for Xerox here, as we'll see if they can mount a comeback. Kieran just on these kickoffs though, and Stealth as well, have been dominant so far. And the fact that you're dominant off of kickoffs alone, you haven't even gotten to the developmental stage of Rocket League yet. You're just dominating them straight off of kickoffs. Decent enough chance there, but Mizuki and looks like Stealth were both a little bit too wide on the shot there. Almost a dangerous spot here for Kieran, as Mizuki is able to at least stop him in that corner. That one goes a little bit too wide, but this is what we feared, and it was that Stealth and Kieran are going to be on offense the entire game, and no team has stopped the bleeding yet, and so far the bleeding comes early for Xerox here as they're down 2-0 with only 45 seconds realistically gone. Ooh.
It's a rare miss right there in front of the net, which should have been an easy left to right save from Stealth, but Instead, just kind of gets caught a little bit low and couldn't quite get up fast enough to get the nose on, just an awkward angle. Instead, gets that one in the back of the net. So cut it to a 1-goal lead here, coming up on the 1 minute has passed. But I mean, I think this is kind of what we would expect to see from Kieran and Stealth, knowing that they have the capability to do the offense. And, well, for about 45 seconds, they were doing really good on the fact that they didn't have to give anything up for the defensive side. But now, 3 or 8 seconds later, and now it's a 2-2 tie game.
Yeah, suddenly everything we were talking about goes out the window, as it's now basically just 0-0, as that was a mix of emotions, I'm sure, for both teams, realizing that now suddenly all of your hard work is gone. It's now 2-2. Nice touch from Kieran, but a good backboard clearance, I believe, from Elite Ghost here. Another wide open net. He tries to get it past Kieran. Not a bad position. He obviously wanted to get it past both of them. That's going to be a pitch off the wall. Stealth almost gets clowned on by Elite Ghost, but is able to at least get that originally out. And once again, back and forth, which what we thought was going to be just an absolute clowning from a gambling problems has now turned into quite a competitive game. Stealth gets awkwardly shaken up on the backboard and now has to try and figure out a way to come back into this action here. Kieran should be able to take this one off the wall, but Mizuki there for the challenge. Oh, great. A really close chance there. Comes out on the counterattack, and once again, Kieran there for an early challenge. And that has been the case for a lot of good goals. You have to challenge early. Can't let the other team start a creation. You have to just be able to stop them in their tracks. That is a bad miss from Kieran, and that's going to lead to a goal. Just some very weird misses. I mean, that's just a very basic miss coming out from Kieran, and it's going to lead to Xerox having the first goal of the series, or first lead of the series.
And again, this is, you know, potentially chalk this to kind of get a feel for this series and the opposing team, because, you know, they played a lot of really solid teams here, and Xerox just showcasing that they are another solid team, that they're not going to be able to give gambling problems this one for free at all. They have to earn every goal and every second of this if they want to walk away with the dub. But, you know, being able to have a 3-2 lead now, coming up on the halfway points, I think is a huge stroke of confidence for Xerox, just because of the sense of, you know, all this hype that we're talking about for gambling problems and all the teams that they beat and everything that they've done. And, you know, that was the harder bracket. They had the harder run, and they should be favored, and they should be unanimous. But now Xerox on the other side saying, you guys completely misread us. You don't know us at all, and we are absolutely worthy of contesting this and potentially to walk away with a finals championship of our own.
Yeah, and we'll see if they can continue that momentum. I mean, at this point, you don't really have to continue anything. You can just stop all the problems from gambling problems. That is, if you can just keep them to this scoreline, you end up taking the game number 1, and suddenly you're looking pretty nice going to the rest of the series. Stealth is going to have a decent touch here. The air dribble's not going to be able to go too much past that, though, as he runs out of boost. Now we see a rotational problem here that could have happened, but at least Ghost is not going to be able to get that one on target. If he were to get that on target, both Stealth and Kieran were basically stuck on the other side of the field and didn't really have boost to work with. So that should have realistically been another goal there for Xerox, but luckily enough, we're able to avoid past that. Great positioning from Kieran, but just a little bit too wide as it goes off the post and not in. So they're getting close. Gambling Problems trying to retake the lead and at least try and get back to equalizing points, as Kieran is going to just drop that one in essentially off of Stealth's path. Pass from the corner, and then the clearance off the post. Kieran just able to slot that one in.
Yeah, just being able to get that off the ricochet and find yourself in a position at midfield. And, you know, that was the thing that got them a lot of the goals in their go-ahead match in the quarterfinals, is they just played really patient Rocket League. They just let the defense make themselves miss. It's just basically put the car in park and watch the defense drive by, and then get a touch on, take your shot, and try to get this. The crossbar, no playing any favors here in game 1 of the finals, is it's going to get deflected off. See, Mizuki's going to take it the other way, get a fake off, and crossbar that time non-factors. That goes up and in. 61 seconds to go, and just split the defense. Either one of them could get a nose on and gets their go-ahead goal.
And now Xerox leads once again in this matchup. I mean, it was 2-0 start, and then quickly 2-2, and then Xerox has been able to take the lead twice at 3-2 and then 4-3. So we'll see if they can continue to keep it. If Stealth has a great run there, which he gets stopped early, as Elite Ghost is waiting on Kieran to try and make an air dribble here. Kieran's going to keep this one low. Gets one flicked past both. That was disgusting from Kieran. containing all of that dribble and getting the flip reset at the end of this one, just disgusting. Double commit coming out from Xerox. You cannot do that in a situation like this. You've got to be able to trust your teammate there, and which they don't, and it's cost them quite a bit now, losing the lead with 44 seconds left. 4s on the clock. A lot of 4s in general right there, as we'll see if that is any good luck to the rest of this series. But gambling problems, those are the kind of goals that they can score, and that's the fear you have going into the grand finals if you're Xerox, is that at any point they can flip the script on you and score an incredible goal. Whether it's solo or teamwork wise, they will get a very good goal developed throughout this series, and that's the kind of scary part, especially with 15 seconds left. This is where they thrive.
Yeah, again, same situation that we saw in the GGEC matchup. I think this is a series they would much rather win in regular time. We know that they can if it does go to overtime, but we'd just rather have that comfort of the victory being in without a sudden death goal. But instead, just a little deflection there. That shot opportunity was prevalent, but unfortunate, as you said, just a swing and a miss. The demo off the kickoff, see if they can get something early, and Stealth is there for the deflection, but instead it's just going to kick it right to the corner, and that's not going to be the initial attack they wanted. It was a good setup in the first 5 seconds, but they couldn't get the finish yet.
Speaking of the finish, though, Stealth doesn't care about your problems. He's going to drop that one in, and he recovers for his small mistake of being in front of the goal, and is able to just drop that one in very nicely right past the defender there in Mizuki, and give them the 1 game lead here in this series now, as game number 1 goes in favor of gambling problems, which was to be expected, but not in that kind of a fashion. It was extremely close the entire time, which is good to see. I mean, going into the grand finals, we were trying to kind of gauge where Xerox would be on the same level of gambling problems, and we could see that through the replays here for game number 1. Of course, powered by Microsoft ATL. They were very much so, I mean, in the lead a lot of the games. So that still gives me hope that Xerox has the confidence, has the ability to stop Kiernan and Stealth from being able to score as much as they did. Of course, it ended up getting cracked open a little bit, but they stopped them at 2 goals for a bit of this game. They were able to keep them kind of stabilized for about a minute and a half, 2 minutes here. And so they had a lot of the game under control, and then just a couple drop-ins from Kiernan, and obviously a great play from Kiernan to get this back to 4-4. And then obviously in overtime is where this happened to be. But Kiernan with this flick here, those are the double commits I was talking about. You cannot let that happen in the grand finals.
Yeah, just small mistakes is going to be the difference maker here, because they're not going to be very often that you see those, that you can take advantage of them. But if you do find them, if you can, then you're absolutely going to be able to potentially and theoretically should get a goal scored off of it, as we saw there with that double commit. But, that is an interesting back and forth matchup between how that all developed in that first game, because of just, you see a couple goals scored early from the gambling problem side. Xerox answers back, and then it's just a 1-for-1 virtually for both of them, which was surprising, because you kind of expected after Kiernan and Stealth take the lead that they would be able to get that defense set up. They'd be able to just stop Xerox from doing anything else. But then instead, they made mistakes of their own that Xerox capitalized on. So I think for both sides, you just clean up those small mistakes, and all of a sudden, this scoreline could go the other way.
Yeah, realistically could, and we'll see if that is going to be the case here or not. If gambling problems can keep this up in this series, if they can start to continue this lead. So far, Stealth is able to do just that, as he takes an aerial dribble all the way off the ceiling, it looks, and is just able to maintain that one. Fakes one, able to look at the control that Stealth has with a musty flick at the end. Weren't able to see that one up close, but Stealth is putting on a clinical show to start this game too already.
Certainly nothing stealthy about that. I mean, you're pinging every radar with a move like that and getting all of the attention.
You're clogging the airspace with that one.
Absolutely. Like, there's nothing low profile about that at all. And being able to get that first goal, 7 seconds. I mean, it took them 3-4 seconds in the first game, and now you get a 7-second goal in game 2. I mean, obviously you see the consistency that they are good on the kickoff, and that is something that you can rely on in your gameplay and strategy, which I think is really reassuring for your opponent. For you against your opponent, just because you know that even if you do give a goal up, you have the ability to strike back immediately in the first 5 to 10 seconds following kick.
Great challenge right there coming out from Elite Ghost, but not going to lead to anything. If that bounce in net would have been great little comeback for them. Stealth going to try and clear that one off the line as Mizuki tried to carry that one in net. As Stealth is just clinging onto the wall, clinging off the wall. Nice bump comes through midair. Mizuki's going to miss that second hit as well. And Kiernan going to find the goal off of that bump initially from Stealth. So while Stealth doesn't get the assist there, that is a large majority on Stealth being able to create that play. And this is what I'm talking about. Those are the kind of opportunities that Gambling Problems can take a lead from, and they work really well together in that aspect.
It's so much credit to Stealth there for not only just getting that bump to open the door, but getting the bump with literally 0 boost. Like, he had to nail that without any extra added flair. Like, you had to be on target from the initial jump, and being able to get that and be just enough of a disruption on the defense to open the door. Incredible control and just understanding of the physics that you're trying to disrupt the defender, and factoring in what kind of boost they're going to use to try to dodge you.
And with 2 minutes ticking down now, Xerox has not looked like they've come alive just yet in this game number 2, which they need to find that sometime shortly. But it's been a lot of Kiernan and Stealth playing really well. This one going a little bit too wide, so that third goal not going to come through for Gambling Problems. But off the backboard, Mizuki tries to find a challenge against Stealth, and a pinch will work just fine. Bring it to the other side of the field, but Kiernan's going to maybe try and find a double tap here. But off the backboard, that's going to be cleared. Now Kiernan's got to find a way back. Mizuki's going to try and slot that one over him, and he does do so. Mizuki would just pre-jump flying for a majority of that part. As soon as he hit that off the ball, he was just flying to get over to it in time. Able to get that right over to the likes of Kiernan and in. So Xerox does find a goal back in this game. A little bit less than 3 minutes now on the clock as they look to try and bring themselves back in the grand finals overall. Try and win game 2 and see if they can coast off that one. But Stealth and Kiernan not the team to give up whatsoever. Kiernan's going to slot that one in and off the second touch. Is going to solidify that one. Third goal to come through.
Yeah, crossbar, just a little bit of a deflection there, but then the follow, just keeping it in position. I mean, Ghost just could not get back across in time. Mizuki was just in the back of the net, but again, just a good understanding and follow-up of where you got to be and what you got to do to make sure that that ball does go across. And Gambling Problems right now in control of this one. They're looking really good. They're looking poised to be able to take game 2. And if they put themselves up in game 2 to be on series point for game 3, then I think it would take a miracle, a Hail Mary, whatever you got to do to be able to get that win. And that should have been a shot on goal. Kiernan should have hit that one, but I chalked that up to one of the rare misses here in this game.
Oh,
what a save, too.
Really close chance. Our Elite Ghost with a great challenge and a great demo onto Stealth in the backfield, but nonetheless still doesn't equalize a goal-scoring opportunity as we see some fast pace from Stealth. And, I mean, I'm assuming that I think this was Elite back here. I'm assuming, it was Mizuki. I think Mizuki thought he had more time to work with than expected, and Stealth just turned it on and just full boosted, double jumped, and was able to get there in time to challenge that goal, and now brings it up to 4-1 in this series. So quite a difference of how the last game has panned out now that Gambling Problem has found their efforts here in this game, and now almost all their chances have been put on net, have been scored. I say that as Kiernan is just clowning on him at this point. I mean, air dribble into the flip reset, into the musty flick, and then just there for the challenge there at the end. And I don't know what you can do to stop when Kiernan and Stealth are on like this.
And you look at it just like how we saw this team do in the 3v3 tournament. I mean, when all three of them, with Toxic, Kiernan, and Smokes, were just playing like they were, and you get them all on the same page, all operating together on all cylinders, then it's just a beast that cannot be stopped. I don't care who you are. That was one of the greatest 3v3 teams. There's a reason they won every qualifier and the finals and walked away with like 65% of the prize pool for the entire month of July. Like, that was a team that was a force to be reckoned with. Kiernan, one of the greatest solo players, Toxic as well as Smokes. Now you just take Kiernan and add in Stealth, and they're just doing the same thing. Individually, Stealth has done a phenomenal job in this game. Got the first goal off of a great bump. Kiernan had a great couple of touches, great assist, great targeting with his shots on. And this game is just all Gambling Problems with exclamation points all the way.
And with a minute left and 5-goal differential between the two teams, it's looking like Gambling Problems is going to be on match point after this one, after Stealth and Kiernan fight each other for a little bit in their own goal line. But we will see that Gambling Problems now, if this is going to be a staple, we always talk about the outliers, and especially in like best of 5, best of 7s, the more games you put in, the more there is just that outline game. And could this be one of them, considering how close the first game was? And there was a lot of goals, obviously, in the first game as well. For this one to be such a difference in between games, do you think this is the outlier? Or do you think this is how Game 3 is going to go as well?
I think that this is a little bit of an outlier. I don't think that you would expect to see such high-profile goal scoring from Gambling Problems. Like, they're making it look like this is just a walk in the park for them. Like, the two musty flicks, the flip resets, I mean, this is just high-caliber play. Mizuki's going to get one here to try to answer something back in this garbage time to get a 6-2, but I don't think that by any means this is what you can expect for Game 3 from Gambling Problems. I think that let's still stand by. If it's not a 3-0, it's a 3-1. Maybe you find one to get back, and maybe Game 1 was the game that Xerox would have taken back, but instead they find themselves falling short in that lone chance they had, and now Gambling Problems have figured it out. They know what they got to do. They're warmed back up, and this is it. This is just their final form, and they're going to take this through.
Yeah, and I did have another lingering question as well, considering obviously the disparity in between Game 1 and 2. Kind of intrigued, and Stealth is just putting on a show here at the end. Get them their 7th goal. Make sure they keep that one up. But I didn't, another lingering question was, do you think this was the fact that Stealth and Kiernan just boosted it up on offense, or do you think Xerox on defense couldn't handle it? Do you think it was like a lapse on defense for Xerox? Because personally, I think that Stealth and Kiernan just turned it on that game. Realistically, they just seemed dominant. Like, it didn't seem like much of their goals were stoppable. That's how impressive some of their goals were in that game. And it just seemed like they turned on to a new leaf here for Game 2.
Yeah, I think that they really did put on a showcase. We could take a look at what they did in this game in the replays powered by Microsoft ATL. But like, this was just an incredible offensive performance from Kiernan and Stealth. I mean, Stealth had a great bump, the 0 boost right there to get the defender out of the way. Kiernan was just on point with his shot selection and just phenomenal targeting. But then you had the, flip reset musty flicks ×2. And like, those are just things that theoretically you could maybe get one out of a series, but getting 2 in a game, like, that's just, I think, accenting that Kiernan and Stealth in this particular game really turned it on. I don't expect a repeat performance of that in game number 3, but they just absolutely put the pedal to the floor, increase the tempo, increase the pace, and add a little flair.
Yeah, and there's a lot of bit of flair in this game, of course. Double taps coming through. Yeah. You saw the deflection over to the pass for Stealth and to be able to take the challenge. And like you already talked about, the musty flicks, there's 2 of them that happened in this one with flip resets on top of it. Stealth, even with this air dribble, with the control of his car, to be able to slot that one in with the zeros on the clock, not necessary to do so. But he wants to prove a point, wants to showcase that they are the best team in this tournament and that they deserve of their spot so far, have been the number 1 seed without a doubt at this point, in which we thought International Beast was that one, of course, just with their track history.
Yeah.
But with Gambling Problems to beat them, to beat Cougar Lovers before that, probably I would say like the number 3 or 4 seed if I were to seed this actually. But to get to that point, to beat 2 of the best teams in the tournament, and now to bring this into the grand finals, they are without a doubt the best team in the tournament so far, and they're continuing to showcase why they are so good. And of course, we have our 3rd place decided for who's going to make it to the IATL finals, and it's going to be Discombobulated Banana, which from the series we saw against Xerox definitely seemed like would be the case of how well they played and beating GG Easy in that point. So let's see if GG Easy returns next week to find one of those qualifying spots.
Yeah, GGEC looked pretty good in their first game that we got to spectate with them against Gambling Problems. So it says a lot about DB as well and what they can do when it comes down to crunch time. But they've punched their ticket to the grand finals a couple weeks' time. And again, having GG Easy now as a team that's, on the outside looking in, they'd have to sign up for next week's qualifier. Just makes that pot that much more interesting just because of the fact of all the other good teams that we have that didn't qualify, all the teams that were not here this week. So excited to see how this all does develop into next week's qualifier. But we still have at least one more game in front of us, potentially 2 if we see Xerox mount their comeback here. I mean, this is the time to cue the Cloud9 tweet. They're down 2-0. There's no way that they come back now, but this is just a great performance we've seen from Gambling Problems because of being able to clutch it up in game number 1, stamp it with an exclamation point times 6 in game number 2. If they can follow with game 3, I mean, they're riding a huge wave of momentum.
Yeah, they are. And obviously after the game like that, after game one, it was like maybe a coin toss, maybe a flip. You don't really know what team is really better. And then game two, they just showed out. Like the momentum from that game two to this one should be much different than it was from game one to game two, considering how much they just straight up dominated that second game. Realistically, they got scored on twice. One of them was like Mizuki beat Kiernan just a little bit. I can't remember their first goal, but it was a large majority of the time it was just Kiernan and Stealth just doing individual plays and just destroying the other two on the other side. Like it was just incredible how they changed that game too and just took under control. Whether it was with individual plays or with teamwork, they proved the point in that game. I'd say finishing scoreline, of course, was 7-2 in that one. This, of course, is game 3 of the grand finals. Gambling Problems, the blue team up 2-0. And they have to find Xerox has to try and find a comeback here in this one, see what they can do. It looks like Stealth and Co have gone to the ugly cars. We've seen this happen once or twice before, and they haven't worked out necessarily.
No, they haven't. And they're slow and not as reactive and not as mobile, I guess, as the standard meta that everybody else goes with, but they're still trying to get back in time, just couldn't quite get there, and we'll see how long they ride this out. You know, if they do walk away with the L in this game, like, do they go to game 4? Because when we saw it happen, we also saw it happen in game 4 as well, and we went to a game 5 after that, and the team that was at once up 2-0 flipped the script, but now all of a sudden, Kiernan's still keeping it meta. He's still rocking the octane. So it's a 50-50, call it half and half, but this is an interesting selection from Stealth here, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, so far, it hasn't really downplayed it too much. Yeah, I mean, they're back at tied to points.
I don't think it's full troll, by any means.
They're pretty gross still, I can't lie. I mean, full troll, we've seen the Scarabs out before, the Mercs, it gets pretty ugly. And obviously, if you don't realize how much of a card change is a difference, you have never played Rocket League, because the hitboxes are different, the way you can air dribble, the way you control the ball, everything is so different when you change cars. So it is very difficult. As you can see, Kiernan missing the backboard right there on the defensive side of the ball. It's a little challenging sometimes when you change cars over completely. And now Stealth is just trolling, and Kiernan is trying to connect with him on the way back. But I'm intrigued on what they're playing here. Are they intentionally trying to lose this game? I am lost, but as of right now, Kiernan sends that one downfield and should be saved just fine. Eliko's going to find the save there. Stealth is going to hit this one back towards his side of the backboard. Kieran's going to be there for the save, and they're just running into each other constantly. Stealth seems to not give Kiernan any space, and that's going to be a problem.
Yeah, I just left that one wide open. I mean, glued to the hip, was just following Kiernan around, and I think that I'm going to try to defend it as much as I can. I don't think it's a full troll pick. I still think that there is viability of the big beef, you know, on the Rocket field. But I think that when you're playing like that, it makes it harder to defend because there's no reason you should both be in the corner, both of you chasing the ball, playing reactive in that sense. But instead, here we find ourselves where that is the case and trying to give Kiernan, I guess, all the glory, take the solo carry as what he can do. But maybe buckle down a little bit and clear up comms and make sure that you don't mess up like that, because they've had a few opportunities now for Xerox where they could have gotten an open shot on. They should have scored a goal. It should be like a 3 or 4-1 scoreline right now. What a save from Mizuki right there. Great flick to the upper 90, but Mizuki just denied that one. That's worthy of a highlight reel for sure.
And now it's just Stealth and Kiernan constantly hitting each other this game, it seems.
Yeah.
We'll see what's going to be the case here. If they can continue this momentum, Xerox that is, or they just get an open net, as Kiernan is able to just slot that one past all the defending players. Very simple for them. And, I mean, there's no defense from Xerox right there. Kind of close on the way back, but just basically a wide open net. Brings the scoreline back to even a piece. And at least it's not full troll, like you said. Kieran's still using the Octane, still going with his car. It's just Stealth here that has decided to switch on over to the bigger side. So Kieran still wants to win this. Stealth is a little bit less so, I think, from how many times he's ran into Kieran so far in this game. But still 2-2 is the scoreline, so even with that bit of trolling back and forth, they are still tied up with 2 minutes left in this one. And of course, they're winning the series overall 2-0. This is match point, so if they're able to find any chance here, it would be now. Stealth gets a good touch. Kieran gets a second touch, but shouldn't really lead into anything. I say that, but it looks like an overcommitment on a defense. I'm not really sure where Elite Ghost was going here because he just kept going. I think just greeted for the boost, and Kieran was just there on the quick turnaround and is able to get them their first lead of Game 3.
Yeah, and I think that, again, to give credit to Stealth, I think that it's enough troll to make things interesting, but not a full int. Like, this isn't just, they're not running it down at this point, like in Worlds. Like, this is a thing that you can work with that is relatively viable. So, a benefit of the doubt, they just try to make things a little better. But watching what Kieran's doing, I mean, just quite literally driving in circles around the defense right there and punishing the greed. And, you know, it's one of those small mistakes that really good teams will punish, and that's exactly what gambling problems are doing. They're finding these small mistakes, and Xerox has had countless opportunities in this game where there's been an open shot, an open opportunity, but they're just missing the angle. They're not getting a good read off on it, and it's just throwing the whole thing off because they should be in the lead right now. Instead, find themselves with this 3-2 deficit.
Part of me really thought Stealth was going to score that. I don't know why. It just, part of me was like, Stealth is just going to score an own goal right here. Oh, that just goes a little bit wide of the crossbar and down. Luckily enough for Xerox, because that 2-goal lead is where everything starts to feel a little bit farther from reachable. Stealth is not even getting close to trying to get a flip reset on this car, you can see there. He tried his best, but couldn't exactly find the axles to land that one on. And Stealth is literally just taking the ball away from Kieran whenever he can in this game. Pinch comes through from Mizuki and Kieran, not exactly what you want playing there. Stealth going to find the initial demo. Now going to try and pass this one back towards the middle of the field. Stealth misses a flip reset once again. Now becoming a laughing matter because I'm going to blame it on him. He's the one that changed his car. That's what happens. A nice pinch, though. Maybe Kieran with a second touch. Didn't have any boost to follow up, though. And unfortunately, I mean, realistically, this is like Kieran against the world right now. As Stealth, never mind, comes back in time to be able to find his save. Potentially the series winning save as well. Oh no! I knew it. Of course this is what happens. That Stealth trolls, gets a good save, and then Kieran is like, you know what? Goes a little bit wide. Stealth brings this one right back to the crossbar. Now we're going to overtime in Game 3.
But we know they're good at kickoff, right? So even in a diesel truck, you can still get there, right? Right?
I don't know. Right, smile, who knows? Kieran in here with a touch, and that's a goal.
What a mess. What a mess.
Oh, we go to Game 4 after a lot of trolling from Stealth here. And, you know, my food's downstairs. I'm not going to say I'm upset, but I'm just, you know, I ordered it at a perfect time. It got here like 3 minutes ago. It was all, I had it mapped out. I was like, perfect. I mean, this is going to be a 3-0. It was looking good. I'm going to eat after this. I'm going to be super happy. And now they've taken my dreams away. And now Gambling Problems has to go to a Game 4 in which now they probably lose the series from what I know.
Now instead of just Stealth, it's going to be Kieran and Stealth. Like they're both going to throw on something different. It's like just to make things like, for what it's worth, that was a close game. And Stealth, as much trolling as he did, as much of a nuisance as he was to his teammate to just steal the ball, to bump him off, to lose possession, et cetera, like it's relatively viable for a majority. Like if he plays a play style that's just like traditional Rocket League, like playing at his skill level, then I think it's totally normal. It's totally fine. It totally works. But instead, you just go, whatever happens. And if we win, we win. If not, we got Game 4, and that's okay. Because Troy, you said this at the beginning. You said if they want to, they can throw a game away, and they did it. So that's on you.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, teams do this a lot, and we'll take a look at the replays of that game, of course, powered by Microsoft ATL. But a lot of that was literally just stealth trolling, and a lot of these opportunities missed or scored on because of stealth trolling. Kiernan, I believe, had like 800 points, while Stealth had 200. Points aren't a huge Rocket League difference, but I mean, it just kind of shows you that Stealth was trolling a majority of the time. I mean, he had a good flick right there, and that was probably the best save of the entire game. Is that stopped the initial equalizing chance coming out from Stealth and Kiernan. But yeah, Kiernan was a game saver here for this team to even get to this point. Of course, Stealth with that second touch. I already knew what was coming as soon as I saw him flying. And what I expected earlier on in the game ended up happening later in the game, in which I knew Stealth was going to score a goal on his team at any point, and it happened. So hopefully they reset momentum and go back into this game trying their best, because, guys, it is a grand final after all. You still do want to win this, but we'll see. I mean, it's up to them. If they want to throw, they can throw. Xerox is happy about that one. So, I mean, going into game 4, maybe momentum is back in Xerox's hand a little bit.
All right, so if Stealth is still trolling, what's his next vehicle choice? What do you think it's going to be?
I mean, it's always a Scarab, right? Scarab's like the easiest go-to. I'm just running it down kind of choice. You got the Merc. You can go with like the Jeep. I used to use a Jeep a lot. If you have that the Jurassic Park expansion in the game, the DLC, you can rock with the Jeep. Jeep's a lot of fun. You go off-roading a little bit in the game, but of course, game number 4 is starting here shortly. So we'll see. I mean, we'll see what the choice of car is going to be, if he's going to go back to his default, if they're going to try and win game 4. The answer is no. No, they're not. Stealth goes to a random car once again, and they get almost scored off of on kickoff here. I don't know. I think Stealth is just going in Rocket League. You can randomize your settings, so he literally just probably creates a new preset and goes, "All right, we're gonna try this one this game," and then just goes with something else. Okay, Kiernan also kind of joined the train too. He's still using the Octane, but it's pretty ugly.
It is, yeah. It's not appealing at all. But yeah, this is curious to see what they're gonna do out of this. You know, if they're able to keep this up, and if they can find their go ahead and limit the amount of troll, if they want to make sure that they don't go to game 4. Kiernan with a disgusting flick over the top. Beautiful.
Stealth, you're lucky you have Kiernan as your teammate. That's all I'm saying.
Oh, the flip reset, just an extra little flick. That was art.
Yeah, I mean, there's a reason he was part of the team that was undefeated through the entire month of July. Like they all those three together were just monsters. Stealth was not part of that team for a reason. It was Smokes and the crew and Kiernan and who was their third? It was Smokes, Kiernan, and I can't remember their third. It wasn't Sneaky. Oh, yeah, Toxic. And speaking of Toxic, Kiernan scores a second goal just off of a boomer of a hit here. Stealth actually gives him a lob for once, and is able to score off that one. Just slightly missing the ball there on the defensive side of the ball. Xerox now goes down 2-0 within a minute's time. This, of course, is the grand finals. Best of 5. 2-1 is the scoreline so far. Game 4 now underway. Stealth isn't even moving. He was just sitting there watching his buddy Kiernan do everything. And Kiernan, I mean, realistically, all trolling aside, both these players have put on a show throughout a couple of these games in this grand finals. And to lead up to this point, of course. But Kiernan has looked phenomenal in this series.
Yeah, and I think Stealth also had, really good plays that would help, Kiernan either
Stealth, now's your time.
Assist or get up a goal. But watch the putback, and they do get that. Hey, Stealth with the fake, though. It just goes up to keep the defense guessing, and Stealth's there. Kiernan's right on the follow and just says, no, leave it. Flips out of the way to leave for Kiernan to punch it in, and a 3-0 lead here. This is the gambling problems, and watching what they did in game number 2 with as much flair as they put on, all the goals that they scored, and a commanding victory gives you that free time, that leeway to be able to mess around for a game. They do just that, and flip of a switch, they're right back where they left off from game 2.
Okay, that was a little dirty from Stealth as well. I heard the bubbles. I was like, this is going to be a bubbly play. Stealth just bring this one all the way back, controls it, and then just hits this one on the flick right up to the top of the net. That's a 4-0 score line here for game 4, in which, we're like, they trolled a little bit. Game 3, haha, is still close. And now they're just like, all right, we're still kind of trolling, but I mean, they're dominating still in this game. 2 minutes gone, 4 goals already. Kiernan and Stealth have connected multiple times in this one. We'll see what Stealth can do from this vantage point. Is able to at least stop the initial shot from Elite Ghost and a boomer downfield for Kiernan. And now control in the hands of Mizuki here as he tries to bring this one past both defending players on the side of Gambling Problems. I also have a gambling problem, so I can relate to their story, but I'm lucky, so it's fine.
Openings.
Listen, it's fine though, because I'm lucky. So if it was bad if I'm unlucky. It's different, you know. I'm built different. Stealth and Kiernan trying to connect for their 5th goal. 2.5 minutes gone, just about halfway through game number 4 here. And of course, Gambling Problems win this game. They win the grand finals and win $125. Nice redirect from Stealth. And that is going to be a goal as well.
Somehow that manages to sneak its way in after a nice little backflip flick into that little lob shot. Kiernan was there in position to punch it in, but not even necessary. Can't believe that had enough juice on it to get there, but good touch from Stealth.
And just about halfway through, can Xerox find a way back in? This would be the point, yes. There's one goal. Is Kiernan and Stealth just completely leave their side of the field. A challenge quickly by Elite Ghost leads to their first goal of this game, but they need 4 more still to get this into overtime. 2 minutes, so there's still a lot of time. And Stealth is still trolling, so they still have a chance at any point in the game for Stealth to score a goal on them. On himself, that is. But Kiernan's going to try and connect off of this one. Doesn't have the second chance here. Goes a little bit wide. Stealth going to go wide on the other end of the field. And now bringing this one back towards the defensive side. Stealth going to find a good save. Mizuki with a great redirect, but not exactly going to get that one in net. And this is where you have to make every shot count from this point on, especially when you're down 4 goals.
Yeah, coming down where time is not your friend and waiting on the respawn here from Stealth. And they finally do get that. Kiernan trying to get the follow, but just isn't there in time after a good deflection from the defense, trying to chase this across the goal. Stealth came flying in as well, but not going to make things challenging. But a good challenge here from Kiernan to stop that at midfield, not let it go any farther. I mean, they're playing in tandem very well together now, and I think this is just a point of they're burning the clock, and you can do this volley back and forth and play it long and just watch the other team try to do something, and all you have to do is disrupt, burn the clock. I mean, this is nothing more than just doing that, because you are 65 seconds away from a grand finals championship and first place prize.
And of course, the qualification into the IATL finals at the end of the month, which is realistically what everyone's playing for, at least through these qualifiers. It's obviously nice to get that $100 on top of that, but of course, to get to the IATL finals, have a chance at the much bigger prize pool. And I think top 3 pay out in the grand finals, and there's only 8 teams. So it's almost a 50% chance to cash something in that tournament. You just have to hope you get the easier side of the bracket in that too, especially. We've seen how brackets develop in the grand finals, and it's been rough sometimes on one side of the bracket and really easy on the other side of the bracket. So that's what comes with random seeding, though, is it's because of the random seeding, it doesn't seed exactly how, we would rate them as far as the teams go. So it would put, what we've seen Gambling Problems so far, it would put some of the 3 best teams on the same side of the bracket, and they'd all have to duel it out to try and get to the grand finals. And Gambling Problems is the only team that has successfully done so far, as they beat, and deservedly so, as this 6th goal is going to trickle in from Stealth. Deservedly so. Gambling Problems has been phenomenal today. We've already talked about the teams they beat, the Cougar Lovers with Toxic, Kiernan's teammate, and then of course to beat Mektos and Freshness from Ghost Gaming in the quarterfinals to get to the semis, and they've just looked amazing. So I think this is well deserved for them, and they deserve to have this grand finals victory.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, they had such a tough path to get here, but nonetheless, they found it to the end of the Yellow Brick Road. They made it to Oz. They found the pot at the end of the rainbow, whatever you want to call it. They got their first place, and they had a long, arduous journey to get there. But good Lord, did they make it look easy in the grand finals after such a challenging journey, just because of, all of the amazing teams that they faced. And then they come up against Xerox, and after a great game number 1, we could take a look at the highlights from the entirety of this series to showcase how we went from each individual game. A great back and forth game number 1. Game number 2, all of a sudden, that's where we saw the flare and the flip of the switch for Gambling Problems, because they just made it look like they were out there by themselves.
Yeah, and game one was that. I guess game one was the outlier in which it was extremely close. A lot of goals scored. Stealth finds an overtime goal, and then like the entirety of game two could just be put on a highlight reel for Stealth and Kieran. They both made phenomenal solo plays in this game to get themselves ahead. They were just nonstop attacking, and it was really impressive what they were able to do in this second game here. And of course, Mizuki's first goal got them back into a close advantage in that game, but it was a lot just in favor for Kieran and Stealth. They individually both played insanely well throughout this tournament, and it just shows you how good they are when they can connect with each other on plays like this.
Yeah, and they just make it look, I mean, regardless of what they're using, what their loadout is, what vehicle they're in, I mean, they just make it look so easy. And huge congratulations to Gambling Problems just because of what they can do out there on the field, what they did do today, because it was, again, the teams that they faced. You know, we watched three teams. We said, hey, this is who we're going to keep an eye on today. All three of them were in the top half of the bracket today. And this team had to go through every single one of them. So it was not an easy path whatsoever. And I can't take anything away from Xerox as well, because they had a very difficult journey to the grand finals. And as we said, game one, very close game. But then once Kieran and Stealth figured it out, Xerox just did not stand a chance. But either way, still walking away with some prize money, still punching your ticket to the grand finals in 2 weeks' time. Plus, the shout out to Discombobulated Banana for getting third place and also getting their ticket punched to the grand finals. So thumbs up all around. But all the teams that weren't here, all the teams that didn't qualify from the top half of the bracket today, that's going to make next week that much more interesting.
Exactly. Well, that one more qualifier next week is what these teams are looking at that didn't quite make it through this one. This is the very last qualifier of the month, will be on August 19th. So next Thursday, same time, 6 p.m. Eastern time, 3 p.m. Pacific time. Go to atlopen.iatl.gg to register for that one, or you can go on CMG's website. They have that one listed for next Thursday. And that will be the only and the last qualifier to get into the finals eventually the week after for August 26th, I believe it is, for those top 8 teams through these qualifiers to face off against one another and to try and compete for that prize pool. And like you said, it's been a phenomenal day today. Trevor, I kind of want to get your final thoughts on everything of how, I mean, you already talked about how great that top half bracket was and how great teams like Gambling Problems played today.
Yeah, just a great day of competition from start to finish. You know, we had some teams that had registered. You know, we expected to see Amberguesa come back to defend their qualifier one title, dropped out before the event started. The way that the bracket came, and you know, you and I talking pre-show about some of the names that we see made things very exciting. We were excited to see how the seeding did go through, because that was going to shape up to be, I mean, we expected 3 of those to be in the top 4. Instead, we got knocked out by the time we hit quarterfinals. And just an interesting way that the randomization of the seeding hit us and the teams that we were all watching. So it was a really good opportunity for a lot of those teams that wouldn't normally have the chance, because they get the short straw at the first round and have to play a team like that. So love to see the fact that these new teams were able to kind of play it through that bottom half of the bracket and then surprise us once we got towards the end and in the quarters, the semis, and the finals. And a shout out to all the competition. And if you didn't make it, then qualifier next week. That's the ticket, because next week is going to be wild. Quote me on it. I believe it.
That is my hope, that next week has some of these returning teams that did not make it today rooting and trying to get to their very last chance to qualify. But of course, thank you so much, Trevor, for being alongside you with this qualifier number 2. One more qualifier next week to lead to the finals, and that will be it. Thank you guys so much for watching with us so far. It was an incredible day of Rocket League games, and obviously to see Gambling Problems take the Storm into the grand finals, facing some of the hardest teams in the tournament to get there. We will see you guys in the qualifier number 3 next week, and then in the grand finals the week after. There will be so much more Rocket League action this month. We will see you next time. Have a good night.